Hey everybody, how's it going? Welcome to episode number 110 of Heavy Metallurgy. Happy Friday. Hope you all had a great week. Alan, it's good to see you. Hope you're doing well. What's been going on?
Oh, good to see you too, Marty. It's been a very busy week. I've been on the road some, just taking care of lots of different stuff going on. So long week, tiring week, but everything's taken care of. Hoping to have some fun this weekend with the little guy. And hoping to have some fun with everybody here tonight. We've got a very fun topic coming up. This is one folks have requested, on and off quite a bit over time. And I do right away want to give a sort of special shout out to Storm Rider. If you are watching, this is one that Storm Rider has asked me about several times over the past several months. And I promised, we are working on it. We wanted to get, some guests lined up who were into the idea too. And the time has come. So we're going to finally tackle our 10 most favorite heavy bands of all time. But Marty, do you have any other announcements before we bring in guests and get down to business?
We are on Twitch, if that matters to you. Twitch, Instagram handle is going along the bottom of the screen there. Definitely go check it out for upcoming shows. I tend to put thumbnails up there and whatnot. You can also get a hold of me direct through that as well. I run that page. Even if you have messages for Alan, I will forward them to him. He does not have social media, which he's probably a smarter man. But next week we just have a Masters Hammer album club. Melanie, who will be on in just a second, is doing a review for the new Frozen Soul, which will be up for Monday. So that's it for show notes. We have guests tonight, both of which are no stranger to this channel. We have Melanie from Melanie Loves Death Metal, and also Eric Bauer, but he's going to be late, apparently. So we'll bring him on later. Melanie, welcome back. Good to see you. How are you?
Cheer. Good.
After your comment a moment ago, Melanie, I'm not sure we were supposed to let you in, but Melanie's having fun in the chat already, and I hope other folks are as well.
I finally figured out how to pop the chat out so I can actually interact while I'm on stream.
Good deal.
Previously, I just read the comments and didn't say anything.
Oh, so you just open another window, or is there a way to do it through StreamYard?
If you go into the YouTube channel and you click on the stream, there's a little hamburger on the chat and it says pop out chat. You can pop that out and then close the rest of the browser, and the chat just stays up.
I did not know that. It's a hamburger, eh? Okay.
Yeah, sorry, it's a developer technical term that we use when we're doing that. So that is my background for anybody that did not know.
Okay, well, cool. Did not know that. So you can pop the chat out. That's good to know. We'll be sure to remind other people when they're on as well. What's been going on? Melanie Loves Death Metal channel we all know and love, growing fast, which is awesome. You've been doing the hustle, doing the work, and what's been going on?
So people really love Deicide, I just realized. And I posted a video of the new Deicide box set that Run Out Groove did of their Roadrunner years. And it got over 3,000 views, which is huge for my channel. I've never had a video that's gotten that many views. And that was within 3 days of posting it. And then it gave me hundreds of subscribers and bumped me over to 3,000 subscribers. So I kind of was like, wow, people really, really like this video. So yeah, thank you to everybody that watched that. It was just a very boring video of me showing what the box set was. I didn't really go into full detail about what I truly thought about it. But yeah, so I have a lot of new subscribers now that have no clue who I am or what I've been doing the last couple of years. So I've been enjoying the new people coming in and commenting on things like asking me if I've ever heard Carcass. Which is a comment.
How do you spell that with a K, right? Yeah.
And then a couple of people be like, "Oh, it's so nice to see a girl that likes death metal." And it's like, I appreciate that comment, because when I first started this, a lot of people didn't like that. So
right.
But yeah, that's been going on. So I've been trying to pump out at least 2 videos a week. Now that I have the time to record videos, now that things are less hectic, and it's been good. It's been fun. Kind of got the motivation back.
Nice. Well, excellent. And here, I just want to thank everybody again. This past week, we went over 4,000 subscribers. I might have mentioned that on another show. I don't remember. Already climbing. Let's get to 5,000 so we can get Alan on that chameleon dive and document that for all time.
I promised.
Change his mind on a few things, maybe. We'll see.
No. It's just going to be me crying for 55 minutes or however long the album is, and
I'll be on there with you. We'll go
it.
together. We'll discuss it as it goes. It'll be fine. We'll hold your hand through it.
55 minutes of Marty chuckling while I cry.
And say that song's not that bad, Alan. Oh yeah, yeah. But well,
let's see. And again, yes, Eric is joining us later, but he texted a little earlier, said he might be running a bit late. So we'll just, if he can make it, we'll have him catch up when he is available.
Absolutely. So, did you guys have trouble doing this? Any trouble picking?
Oh yeah, I did. I have a list of 30 bands.
I've got more than 10 here. I got more than 10 here, easily.
Which is not surprising. And I really, some of these I'm not. I think like my 1, 2, 3 are my 1, 2, 3, and then after that, it's pretty just really depending on the mood, the year, what's been going on in my life. But my 1, 2, 3 have been my 1, 2, 3 for a very long time. But everything else after that, I just kept thinking of things like, oh, I should have put this there. Oh, I should have put this there. So I have a top 20 at least.
I didn't rank them. I know Alan maybe mentioned that in the email. I'm like, no, that I got maybe my top 3 right now, and that's about as good as. Yeah, I mean, I think a lot. I don't know about you guys, but for me, a lot of favorite band status, it all ranks back to my teenage years, or sooner than that. And there's thousands and millions of bands that I love, but the ones I'm going to show tonight are ones that they put out some good, they put out some bad, but they're favorites for a reason, the nostalgia, basically. But we'll get into that, I'm sure.
Well, I just have to say you both stink because you're cheating, because 10 bands, and I have exactly 10, and I have cried and sweated and cursed for days getting this list into ranked order. 10 bands. No giant inflated list, or no everybody's tied for 5th. So no, I'm counting it down.
I have a pretty
count down.
Solid. Yeah,
oh my God.
I'm starting at 10 and counting down. So yes, we're counting down to 1 backwards. I do have a couple of honorable mentions for sure, but only 2. So I mean, I've got 12 bands total that I will highlight.
All right,
I have 10, done what the people asked.
I have 10 honorable mentions.
Take your 5-finger Death Punch album and cassette tapes and leave the hall, Melanie.
your steal is not true.
You need to go spend the time and check out this band called Carcass. You may not have heard Bolt Thrower. It's Bolt with a B.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's a hard topic, and I understand y'all, needing or wanting to hedge a little bit, because it doesn't sound so hard at first, but yeah, when you start trying to do it, there's a lot of bands that you want to, get on the list, and there's just not space for them, and you have to start thinking about, how do I cull this down? How do I do it? What gets left off? What gets a band a little bit ahead of another band? And again, to be real clear, before we start on any bands, this is our favorite bands. We are not claiming these are the most musically proficient artists. They're not the most influential. They're not the ones who sold the most or anything like that. It's just our personal favorites. But yeah, when you listen to as much stuff as us, it's hard to do it. Charles's list is, I can get behind that. Absolutely. That starts with the Danish Randy, followed by the Yugoslavian Randy, followed by the Polish Randy, followed by the Colombian Randy, followed by the New Zealand Randy. It's actually a very popular band name for a while there in the 80s. So
crazy.
But yeah, it's not an easy thing to do, and actually my approach ended up being very similar to Melanie's. I've had a top 3 favorites for a long time, and they're the same. After that, it became a real quagmire. Figuring out which other 2 should be in the top 5, which ones just missed the top 5, and then what what to squeeze into the top 10 and what gets left out of the top 10. And you look at it and you know there's some bands that you really love that you feel like there should be in there, but hey, if you put them in, somebody else has to come out. So for folks that, like to watch these things and, sort of yell and scream like, where's this band? Where's that band? It's like, well, they're a step or two down, but who do I take off the list to make room for them? It's a lot tougher than it seems like when you're actually going to sit down, commit to making the list, and then present it, to a whole bunch of people. It's not the easiest thing to do.
Yeah, for sure. And I even sent the list to a couple of my friends, and they did the same. Like, where's this band? Like, all you do. I'm like,
the list can. I think the top 5 probably are pretty good for staying where they're going to stay. It's just everything else can change. I mean, I don't know. While Melanie's going, I will arrange mine into a number system and and call some of the pile here, and we'll.
Yep. But no, that's a good point. You're right too, Marty. Things do change. If we had done these lists 10 years ago, we'd all have very different lists probably than we do right now. If I had done this list even a year ago, I think I would have at least one difference on my list. So things do change over time. There are bands that, kind of fall by the wayside for us. And there are other bands that we grow more attached to. So this list isn't going to be carved in stone forever. It's going to be carved in stone for this one evening and for this one episode. But things can definitely change and evolve over time.
Yeah, I don't know how long my dog is going to last in the room, so I might have to get up and let him out. Just a fair warning.
No worries.
No worries. Yep, no problem at all. I may have to get up and deal with pets. We got our cats like a new fuzzy ball, and there's nothing special about it. It's just a fuzzy ball. And
it doesn't matter.
The one of the cats in particular has been hyper obsessed with this ball for a solid week now. I mean, to the point where it's not coming when we whistle to give it food. It's normally a lap cat that sits on my wife 10 hours a day. It has ignored her for a week.
Is it a catnip? Is it a
no
catnip ball?
No, it is not. All the cat wants to do, it picks the ball up in its mouth, carries it to the nearest door, hits it with its paw to jam it under the door, and then sits there frantically trying to get it back out from under the door and yowling until somebody opens the door so it can get to the ball. You take the ball, you throw it across the room, it goes and picks it up and jams it right back under the door again. This is the hell of my life for the past 7 days. So if anybody needs a cat, just saying, comes with a free fuzzy ball.
Right.
But
okay.
Nothing to do with what we're covering here. I'm buying Marty some time.
I'm gonna turn off my camera while Melanie talks in a range here, so no one can see.
All right, shall we begin with a couple of honorable mentions, or do you want to? Some people like to do those first, others like to do them at the end.
We can do them first. That's fine.
Let's start with a couple of honorable mentions.
All right.
And as always, Melanie is the guest. And again, for folks that are missing Eric Bauer, he'll join in when he can. He's running a bit late. When he gets here, we'll just let him catch up to whatever point we're at on the list.
Cool. So yeah, for a very long time, this was probably my top 5 band. And I think as I got older, started to kind of fall off a little bit. And no shame here. Pantera has been a definitely honorable mention, influential band of mine. One of the main gateway bands to getting into heavier music. I still love a lot of their albums, especially this one. This is probably one of my favorite ones. I think for the most part, getting into heavier like death metal music, I'm not always in the mood to listen to this anymore, but I still have appreciation for it. I've seen them several times live back even when Dimebag and all of them were still alive, so I got to see the heydays of Pantera and appreciate it. So this is definitely one of my honorable mentions. I think it'd be very strange if I didn't at least say like, hey, this has always been one of my favorite metal bands. And then another one is also Sepultura. Sepultura has been a hit or miss band with me. I admittedly, once I got to Roots, I really didn't care too much for that album. And I stuck with the first, couple albums. And then as I got older, I started to have a little bit more of appreciation for Roots. I'm not a huge fan of their later era albums, but I still absolutely love Arise and Chaos and all those, the first Schizophrenia, all those. Still listen to them all the time. I love Max Cavalera, even though he's kind of a nut job sometimes. But I love what he's doing for like the underground metal scene right now. He's been, doing a lot and pumping up a lot of underground death metal bands. So I feel like that's worthy of an honorable mention. And the last honorable mention that I definitely wanted to call out is I struggled saying Ozzy because, like, I know Ozzy's a band technically, but I just put this here because Ozzy has always been like one of my all-time favorite artists, and especially a lot of these albums that he's put out throughout his career. Not a huge fan of the last album that he put out, but anything before that I was pretty big fan of, and I'm always a big fan of all the work that he does. So I just put Ozzy in there too. I feel like it would just felt weird not to say Ozzy, even though Black Sabbath is going to be there somewhere later on in the evening, I'm sure. So I threw Ozzy in there too, just for an honorable mention. But all bands, gateway bands for me, those three, some of the first metal bands I ever listened to and got into, Ozzy and Black Sabbath were one of my favorite metal concerts, along with Pantera. I've seen Sepultura several times. And just those three bands are really what I kind of credit, along with Obituary and Death, like being the reason why I listened to metal and why I got into it, for sure.
Oh, solid picks out of the gate. Folks like the Ozzy pick, for sure. Nice job.
All right. Good start, Alan.
All right, I've got two that I decided on for honorable mentions. The first of them is Pentagram.
Ooh,
So
nice.
Doom Metal Masters from the East Coast. The band has existed in different incarnations since way back, actually kind of maybe late 60s, very early 70s, depending on when you want to consider them Pentagram versus maybe some other projects they had going on. The reason Pentagram's in the honorable mentions and didn't make the top 10, one thing that I looked at a lot when making this list tonight was, bands that had, a lot of longevity and did a lot of quality stuff over a long time. And Pentagram has a lot of good material over time, but it's really scattered out. I mean, for the first, 14 or 15 years the band existed, all they released were like 4 singles that are really, just a few 7-inches. There's a lot of cool recordings from the 70s, but they've always been spread out over demo tapes and, live rehearsals and stuff. There's not a lot of official output from those early days. And I have had a ton of fun and gotten a lot of enjoyment out of, tape trading, CDR trading with people, digging into those recordings with this band over the year. It's one of those things that's brought me a lot of joy and a lot of entertainment. And I do like, especially the first 3 albums they finally did when they got into the 80s and the early 90s. Those are, killer albums. 2 of them are among my favorite, doom metal albums and would rank high on other lists too. But you get after that, later on, the band lineup is, very unstable. Some of the albums are good. Some of them are really weak. They got in a habit of every album being, half old songs that were redone. And a lot of times that didn't work very well. Some of the new songs were great. A lot of them were kind of so-so. Yeah, so I didn't think there was maybe quite, that consistency over time that they were quite going to make it into the top 10, and just not having, really that long of a catalog in terms of official releases. Something you'll see with, once we get into my top 10, they're all bands that have been around for a long time and pumped out a lot of material, with maybe one exception. But still, one of the real defining doom metal acts, I've got a couple of shells over there that are nothing but Pentagram bootlegs. I've got a good chunk of my hard drive that's nothing but Pentagram live shows and bootlegs. It's a band I really love digging through and exploring all the little tidbits and trivia about them. So they deserved an honorable mention, even though they didn't quite make the list for the night. So that's my first honorable mention. Honorable mention number 2 is a band I go on about quite a bit, so this should not surprise folks much. It's Cirith Ungol. Cirith Ungol, looking at it on paper, this band seems like it'd be kind of a slam dunk top 10 for me, because I love every single album they have made. I don't think they've ever made a bad album. I don't think they've even made a mediocre album. I think they have made nothing but great albums. The problem, however, and why they didn't make the top 10 is that in the what, 45-ish years of their existence, they've released exactly 5 albums. And for me, that wasn't enough of a catalog to cut the top 10. Putting this ahead of, some other bands that have 14, 15, 18 studio albums just kind of felt weird and wrong. It's a lot easier to make 5 great albums than to make, 18 great albums. So their catalog's just not as deep as a lot of the other bands. They, of course, they were disbanded for a good chunk of that time. So, I mean, there's a reason they didn't make a lot of stuff. But a terrific band, loved to death, very unique sound, very original. And again, 5 albums that I rate all of them probably A minus, A plus. Very few bands I give those kind of marks to across their entire catalog. It's just kind of a short catalog. And that's why I wanted to give them an honorable mention for having just an absolutely stellar body of work. It's just a little bit short compared to the other bands I want to talk about tonight. So those are the 2 bands I decided would be my honorable mentions for this. All right, Marty, you got a few in the stack there that you'd like to do an honorable mention shout out for?
Sure. It kind of hurt to cut these guys from the top 10 because in my mind, they have not put out a bad record. Yeah, they put out some that are better than others, but Bolt Thrower for Victory.
Interesting.
This is a one
Some
of those
folks in the chat have already had Bolt Thrower in their top 10 lists that they've been posting.
This is an original pressing of For Victory, and it comes with the live bonus CD War.
Nice.
I loaned this out to a friend a long time ago. I had to fight to get it back, and when I got it back, the case is all busted to shit. The discs are all scratched to shit. So it just goes back to never loan out your shit. But from English punk beginnings into just a death metal juggernaut, they really don't reinvent the wheel, although there was a short period of evolution for this band. They really settled on a style that heavy riff oriented, amazing song. After this album is a perfect riff album. 100%. Every riff is gold. There's that. There's I'm gonna show this. There was a hot minute where Dark Throne was probably in my list of favorite. Oops, there's an Immortal record in there too. Sorry. Yeah, they would make the honorable mentions as well. I really enjoy the Norwegian style. And though I prefer Soulside Journey to their black metal era, I really got to say, I always love Culto's vocals. They're just so cancer throat sounding, and the simplicity of the riffs mixed with a little Celtic frost. Even some of their later albums, I don't like their last 3 or 4, but up through Hate Them, I think they're excellent. They got excellent stuff to listen to for sure. These guys would make the list. I showed Immortal for the unique guitar playing, strange atmosphere, and especially on this record, another golden riff album. 100% riff. Sorry, I have a couple more to show.
No, that's fine.
For a while, there was a hot minute where this band was in my top 10 list for sure. That was Omen.
Cool.
It's Maiden influenced U.S. power metal with a silver throat. J.D. Kimball was an amazing vocalist. He put so much heart and soul in a bluesy croon to this stuff. It just, what a amazing singer. Great songs. I like the first 3 albums a lot and the Nightmare single. My favorite is The Curse, or is it Warning of Danger? Probably Warning of Danger. I'll get it here eventually. There it is. Amazing. Rest in peace, J.D. Kimball. I will not show. Okay, here's 2 more and I'm done. These guys, my teenage years were filled with these. I don't know where I'm missing one here.
Nice pick.
I don't know. But yep, Destruction. They Infernal Overkill or Eternal Devastation. Oh, my Release from Agony. shit's gotten mixed up. Things are chaos over here. I'm just saying, having to reorganize everything. It didn't work out well. So anyway, yeah. I also like Release from Agony quite a bit. The demo, of course, as well. But they just had such a unique riffing style where Creator was more. I don't know. I don't know how to describe their. It's so interesting that these guys were in the same country and sounded so remarkably different from each other. But yet still had a similar darkness and vibe to them. But I ended up picking Creator, as we will see later on. But I did spend much time with these guys. First 4 Corner records, rarely left my player. And these guys for the longest time were probably a favorite as well. But time just, you have to pick other stuff. All right, 3 more and I'm done. Sorry, Al.
No, that's fine. That's honorable mentions are meant to make sure you get some shout outs to the bands you want to. No problem at all.
Emperor, Nightside Clips. I love Wrath of the Tyrant. I love As the Shadows Rise, this, and Anthems to the Welcome to Dusk. After hearing this album, it really... This to me was the end boss of Norwegian black metal. This stuff had a cult vibe to it, and the atmosphere, the swirling keyboards, the way they orchestrated this darkness was just as expansive as the Necrolord cover art. These albums are complete classics. And 2 non-metal. These guys should have been in the top 10, but I had to edge them out because of other stuff. But Skinny Puppy, I love them. Mm-hmm. Even after Dwayne passed away, and they got back together with The Greater Wrong of the Right, their sound got to be a lot more dancey, and I still like it. I still think it's good. I love Ogre's vocals, but this early stuff it's just danceable nightmare. It's a danceable nightmare, and sometimes the way that things are cut up, it's even like albums like Last Rites. It used to piss off the club kids because they couldn't dance to it. But this shit is super dark, infinitely interesting, and if you're a metalhead, there's no reason why you would not get into this stuff. It's so good. And we'll take it gothic. Fields of the Nephilim. I've liked every era of this band as well. They've changed quite a bit. They've gone through different styles, from more of a gothic vibe, just from spaghetti western to more of gothic to ethereal to some metal type interaction. Super great. Carl McCoy is the mainstay in this band, and his vocals are super dark and super sick. Tommy, thank you so much for the super chat. You're so kind. Super
appreciate that, man.
Appreciate it. And what am I kidding myself about Skinny Puppy? Is it
the fact that Skinny Puppy didn't even make your top 10. I think Aaron's saying that you're not fucking around tonight.
No. But yep. So that's it. In Immortal, I've shown in passing, and that's it for my pile.
Nope, that's an impressive list. And yeah, I'm surprised a couple of those are in the not in the top 10. So I'm kind of with Aaron's. It's like that top 10 is going to be pretty loaded, it seems like.
We'll see. We shall see.
Let's see. Oh, and LKP. Yeah, just to be, in case we are confusing, but we did decide to make the topic, just heavy bands, not necessarily heavy metal bands, because we wanted to leave room. Marty likes, some industrial stuff. Eric, likes, hardcore stuff. Melanie may be a secret industrial or some kind of slam EBM fan that we don't know about. So we thought it'd be fun to leave it open rather than making it strictly heavy metal. It'd give folks a chance to make sure they were mentioning bands that really would be their top, regardless of what part of the heavy spectrum they ended at.
I could have easily put Cold Chamber or Mudvayne. I'm kidding. I'm absolutely kidding.
If you say Cold Chamber 3 times fast, they might come back and tour again. Don't do it.
Yeah, you say that 3 times fast, ICP somehow appears and covers you in Fuego.
Now I'm just sad and disillusioned.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to go buy Taylor Swift concert tickets and ask people to, give me donations on, super chats to reimburse me.
Apparently there's this thing I saw. This is a complete aside that you mentioned Taylor Swift, that people are going to her concerts, like young girls are going to her concert and getting so worked up that they're coming out of the concert and forgetting about it. They're having like some sort of a excitement triggered amnesia that goes along with it. I don't know. I was only half-assed watching I thought it was really stupid.
Weird.
And so I didn't really sit to process it. But if you're that worked up over that garbage, then I guess you deserve to fucking forget about it.
It's definitely the cost of that they paid for a show, and they were disappointed, so then they just blanked it out.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's this generation's Elvis or Beatles or whatever else. You had kids screaming and fainting as soon as they'd step on the stage 50 and 60 years ago too. So
yeah,
same stuff. Just now, everybody takes a picture of it on their phone when it happens.
All right. Well, let's get into the nitty gritty of this. Melanie.
So it really killed me. Because this was going to be my number 10, and it was going to be Cattle Decapitation. Everybody knows I just absolutely love this band. But I really was super, I'm going to just be to the point. These have always been my favorite bands. I can't start blurring this because Cattle came later in my life. Number 10 is Iron Maiden. I didn't even pull an Iron Maiden because you guys all know Iron Maiden. I absolutely love this band. I think this just goes without saying why. I mean, everybody knows who Iron Maiden is, one of the most influential, if not the most influential metal band in the world. And it was one of the first metal bands that I got into at a very young age, post, Pantera and all that stuff. And I still listen to, my dog is barking. I'm sorry if you guys can hear that. I don't know what's going on out there. It's driving me nuts. It is 9:30 at night. I could not understand what possibly be going on right now that my dog is barking at. But I still listen to at least one Iron Maiden album a week. Every time I get into my car, it's on Sirius XM Liquid Metal or the Ozzy station, and I just pump it and blast it. I still buy all their albums that come out whenever they release them. Yes, I did buy the newest one last year. I haven't listened to it since it came out, but yeah, I mean, it's one of those bands that I feel like no matter what they do, I'm probably always going to love it. One of the best live shows I've ever seen in my life. Some of the best t-shirts I own that I don't wear anymore because I don't want to wear them out. I don't ever want to not have them. The first time I ever met my wife in person, I was wearing an Iron Maiden Killers shirt, and she is not a metal fan, but that is what I showed up in our first ever meeting.
Perfect.
And it's in our first ever pictures together. It's hilarious, at our wedding and stuff, and a collage of us being together. Here I am in an Iron Maiden shirt, and she's in a really nice outfit, and we were at some restaurant. And I figured, this band is special to me if my wife is accepting of me and she's okay with that.
Right on.
You might as well find out right away, is there a chance for this to go anywhere or not? Because if they don't pass the Killers bar, deal's off.
That deal's off. Yep.
Yeah. I think the best thing though for me now is having kids. And if I put on Iron Maiden, at least one of them will come in and just really dig it. They will enjoy it. I think that's probably one of the cooler moments for me right now. But yeah, there's no denying it's just one of the best bands ever. I know a lot of people really don't care for Bruce's vocals, and they preferred the first albums to him and stuff like that, but I've never felt that way. I've always loved everything. There's really maybe one album that I don't care too much for. And I think a lot of people probably can guess what those are, pretty late on into their career. But everything else, I'll listen to just about anything. I'll just put it on and just be happy with it. They just make me happy. I don't think I'm ever not in the mood for Iron Maiden. My daughter danced with my kid. Nice.
I think I counted wrong. I have to Oh, wait. Oh.
I really was probably going to put them higher, but it was tough because there's a lot of sentimental bands that I've always really, really loved. And so I tried to keep it to that. And not try to flood it with what I currently love now, later in life.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, definitely, one of those mainstay bands for a lot of folks. It's interesting. A couple of folks in the chat, as soon as you said that, were like, oh crap, I forgot to put Maiden on my list. Adam too. And it kind of just goes to the point we made starting this out, that how hard it is to do this and how easy it is to overlook a band. It's one reason, when people like Storm Rider had asked me this question, or posted in the chat before, it's like, hey, what are y'all's 10 favorite bands? I always kind of dodge the question because I'm like, no matter what I list, I'm going to forget somebody, and I hate doing that.
Yeah.
So, yeah, the fact that even folks in the chat are overlooking and forgetting Iron Maiden, one of the biggest heavy metal bands ever, goes to show how tricky it is to put a list like this together. You think you've got it nailed down, and then you stop and realize, I just missed one of the biggest, most important bands imaginable.
Yep. All right, Alan, it's time to get into your number 10.
Number 10. All right. Well, you know what they say. Other bands play, but Manowar is number 10. Should have wait. They probably All Men Play on 10 would have been a lot better. I'm a little off my game tonight, it seems. Anyway, I've got Manowar at number 10. Now, Manowar is a band I rag on sometimes, but it's for very specific things. When it comes right down to it, the first 6 or 7 Manowar albums are all anywhere from very good to extremely good A+, kind of material. I just picked, Hail to England. I think most people consider this kind of their zenith, and it's kind of hard to argue with that. The reason Manowar is only number 10 on my list is that after you get through those first 7 albums, there's not much of a catalog left. It's really weird that, they've got all these great 80s albums, and I don't, even Triumph of Steel at the beginning of the 90s. I still kind of like that album. It has its problems, but I'd still say it's a good album. But then from 1992 all the way up to today, you only have 4 more studio albums. The band's all but extinct in terms of new releases for 3 decades now. And of those 4 albums they've put out in the last 30 years, one of them I don't really like. One of them I like a lot. One of them I loathe as one of the worst albums ever recorded. And the other one's pretty good. So it's real scattershot. And then there's just not that much of it. So I wasn't sure Manowar would make the top 10, but as I looked, at the discography, I'm like, you've got a run of about 7 albums there, from Battle Hymns up through, Triumph of Steel, where they just made, awesome, glorious music. It's fun. It's cheesy, yes, but it's also great classic stuff. So Manowar squeaks in to the number 10 position, despite having, a catalog that's pretty bare for 3 decades. So as much as I do sometimes rag on the band for overcharging on tickets and sometimes phoning in their live performances, there's no denying that they had a really good long streak of classic albums. And that's the kind of long-term consistency that... I look at, and, I kind of, thought, these are bands I've played a lot for a very long time because of that reason. So Manowar's number 10 for me.
Tom says all men make top 10s.
Yes, I definitely should have had the all men something top 10 pun ready. It's been a long week, folks. I may miss a few pieces of low-hanging fruit tonight. But now, Marty, it's your turn to start down the chain. What you got at number 10?
Number 10, With a Bullet. This band I liked when I was younger, but their style changed considerably, and I think they morphed into a much better band. That would be Germany's Running Wild. This is the era I prefer. Going through these. But they started out kind of a weird occult metal band, kind of mid-paced, dark, weird. And then they decided that they were going to go to Goodwill and sew up some sashes and get some fake swords and sail the 7 seas. And once they became pirates, the riffs got so much better. Oh my God. The harmonies, the guitar harmonies, that dueling guitar thing that's so pronounced in Germany. This was the gateway one for me. This is the one that really clicked and made me decide that this band was another one of those perfect riff bands. I really love Rolf's voice. He's got a very unique singing style, and like a lot of bands from Germany from back in the day, they all have their own sound. I don't know. There's a wealth, and even there's some of their newer shit's really good too. They've had some hit or misses over the years, but they're still trying. They broke up for a while,
Yeah, they
they're still
retired for like 12 months or something.
something like that. And then,
Yeah.
you know, they came back with a so-so record and then got a little bit better again. But I mean, the heyday, the glory days of this band are long gone, but they're still putting out good stuff and they're still great live. And they've got a monster catalog of awesome, awesome music that you should not ignore for sure. All right, Melanie.
I give that first pick a rating of R for really good.
All right, number 9 is Fear Factory.
That's a great record.
Oh, cool. Okay, interesting.
So Fear Factory, another gateway band for me. One of the first ever metal bands that I really got into. And this is not a joke. I love every single one of their records. There's not a single record that they've come out with that I didn't like. This one and then Mechanize is probably my favorites. I don't know what's going to happen now with the new singer and Dino continuing the band. It's going to be a little bit weird without Burton at vocals, and I might be to the point where I'd be okay if they just hung it up. But I absolutely love that band. I know they've got that industrial to them, but I've always loved the themes that they put into their music, the machines and the sci-fi and all of that. They're a very emotional band. If you really know their music, they have a lot of like emotional kind of ballady songs here and there with it throughout their discography. And I just think that it's just always been one of my all-time favorite bands. All right. Hey, you know what? It's not Slipknot. I refuse to put Slipknot in any of my lists tonight. So chill out, Ryan. But yeah, I just can't not put them on this band on my list. I've just always loved them. And yeah, I feel like that's going to be a controversial pick. I know a lot of people really laugh about them, but they're just one of those bands I'm always going to love.
I really like that I like Soul of a New Machine.
Demanufacture. Yeah.
Yeah. And Demanufacture. That was the first album that, you know, we want to talk about industrial crossover. It's got Reese Fulber from Frontline Assembly. It joins the band as a, not like touring with them, but, you know, like behind the scenes and stuff, doing the synth stuff. He's awesome.
I idolized Raymond Herrera too. Like he was
amazing drummer. Crazy.
Amazing. I used to when YouTube became a thing, when I got access to the internet, like I would just search his drumming videos because he would release them, his playthroughs and stuff, and just be in awe. Like I absolutely loved him as he was just he's probably one of my favorite musicians. So yeah, this band I still love. Like I said, I don't really know. I think Dino probably should just hang it up, but we'll see how this new singer is and what this new music sounds like. I'm hoping it doesn't kill me. It probably will. But yeah.
Chris says if Melanie's dog played in a band, that would be my favorite band. There you go. All right. Alan, number 9.
Number 9. Number 9, we go into the Hall of the Mountain King and the Sabotage catalog. Sabotage, a couple of reasons they made it onto the list, a couple of reasons they're not higher. One reason they're in my top 10, they're a band that changed styles pretty dramatically by the time you got to the 90s, but they were still very good at their new style. I like a lot of the 90s albums quite a bit, as well as, you know, some of the stuff from earlier when they were more, you know, straightforward heavy metal. They always had a pretty unique sound. They had, you know, a very unique vocalist. They had one of the most amazing guitar talents of the entire era. And it's a real shame that, you know, he died so young. So, you know, all of these things, you know, put together, you know, Sabotage, you know, definitely gets up there. I've played Sabotage a ton. I still go back from time to time and break out Mountain King and some of their other ones quite a bit. In terms of why then aren't Sabotage higher? They did kind of peter out over the years. By the time you're getting into like, you know, the later 90s and their last album that came out around 2000, maybe 2001, you kind of felt like their well had run dry. You know, that they were kind of just revisiting the same formula, doing the same kind of, you know, rock opera story, but just a weaker version every time. So in a way, it's a little bit like Manowar, that they just kind of stopped putting out stuff, and you know, the stuff at the end just wasn't that, you know, as impressive maybe as stuff they had done beforehand. But still, if you think about it, you've got Sirens, you've got Dungeons Are Calling, Power of the Night, Hall of the Mountain King, Gutter Ballet, Streets, one of my favorite albums of the 1990s period. I even into I know Marty, you don't like Handful of Rain, but I like Handful of Rain a lot. Dead Winter Dead's not a bad album. So there's still a lot of quality albums up through about 95 even. And it's only then into the late 90s that suddenly it fell apart. And to be clear, I'm not including the Trans-Siberian Orchestra in this statement. That's a completely separate project with a different set of goals, not part of this. But yeah, Sabotage, one of the really cool staples of American heavy metal for a long time. They were one of the bands that held in there and were still putting out decent albums longer and stayed on a major label longer than a lot of others did. That speaks volumes to their quality. So great band. A shame they kind of faded at the end. There's been a lot of talk recently about possibly a new album in the near future. I'll believe it when I see it because it's been talked about several times over the years. I guess we'll just have to see if they've got something cool to do or not.
He mentioned it would probably be the last one too.
Yeah, again, John's had a lot of health problems over the years. I don't know who he'd have in the lineup at this point and who wouldn't be involved. We'll have to see. It would definitely be interesting. It's something I'd have to check out out of curiosity. I would try to go in with pretty modest expectations, but they've got enough classics in their catalog that, and I go back and play them enough. They had enough great releases over a long enough span of time that they made my top 10 at number 9.
All right. Eric is on his way, and I just sent him the link.
Awesome.
He is on his way.
We'll get him caught up as soon as he is available. Perfect.
All right. Well, I might as well go. Mine'll be a quickie here.
Yeah, Seagull, that Grace of the Witch, that's a killer song. So many good ones in theirs. All right. What have you got for your number 9 pick?
No, according to, Alan's criteria, they don't have enough songs or enough albums to be in the top 10 list. And this band is definitely this for me, but there is no denying the impact this band has had on me as a guitar player. I mean, our first album, you listen to the song Putrefactive Adoration. I wrote a good share of the riffs for that. And it sounds a lot like this band. Melanie, maybe you should check them out. They're called Carcass. And it's these two albums in particular. I cannot tell you how many times I've spun both of these albums, and I could still put them on now and not be sick of a single riff on here. The way they're constructed. Oh, here we go. What's up, Eric?
What's happening?
How you doing? We're going to catch you up here in a second, but
I'm extremely agitated, so
I'm sorry.
Nice shirt, Eric. Nice shirt.
Well, thanks, Melanie.
And you look very handsome tonight too. See, are we making you feel better? Nice shirt. You look handsome.
Well, shucks.
Your breath smells great.
You probably smells wonderful. Yeah.
I do smell pretty good.
See there, already 100% improvement. But Carcass. Again, I've spun these albums so much. They're part of my DNA, and I write riffs that they sound good to me, and then come to find out later, oh, that's probably a 1 or 2 notes away from being a Carcass riff. It's just a very big influence for me. And when it comes to death metal, I love the mix of Bill's pitch shifted lows and Jeff's snarled screams. They're the perfect combination. They complement each other perfectly. I loved the crusty beginnings, and even when they refined their sound on this one, Necroticism, it still was sick. It was still dripping with filth and gore, and it was a band that sounded like Carcass. It was a band that deserved the name Carcass. When they went to Heartwork, I like that record too, but it's not Carcass anymore for me. They got too streamlined, too melodeath. But yep, these 2 albums alone put them in the top 10 for me. So that's my number 9. And Eric, we started off talking about honorable mentions, and then we're doing our top 10. So you want to start with some of your honorable mentions and do your number 10 and number 9?
I pulled 8 because I was too irritated to think about more.
Okay, that's okay. We'll just work in here at number 8.
I've been off and on the phone with Comcast or Xfinity for like 2.5 hours now. So
2.5 hours.
Did you turn it on and turn it off again?
That's multiple phone calls, Marty. I've talked to a total of 5 people for a grand total of about 2.5 hours.
That the Xfinity, that's your cable and internet provider. Is that what that is?
Correct. That's the internet. Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. I mean, I guess, okay. Honorable mention. I mean, I've got, dude, my favorites change every day. So this is all pretty much just going to be bullshit from me. So, you know, take it as you will. Here's an honorable mention to piss off Marty. Clandestine by Entombed.
Yeah, that's
this
not the
record
better.
Fucking smokes.
First and the third
is not nearly as good as this album. This album is better than Left Hand Pat.
Oof. That's cool. I'm glad you like it.
Wolverine Blues is better than this? Is that what
yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
You're absolutely wrong with that.
It's better written.
I like Wolverine Blues, but this is a way better record for sure.
Right.
This record smokes, man. Just front to back, there's nothing wrong with this album. I don't hear any of the complaints that people say when they talk shit about this record. Like, the transitions are amazing. Living Dead into Sinners Bleed, like that transition kills. Sinners Bleed into Evil In, that transition kills. Every track on this is good, man. It's not like
I don't hate it. I don't hate the record. I just think it's overrated.
It's so good. It's so good.
Yeah.
It's overrated? Do people actually overrated. Love it that much?
I mean, Eric does, and a lot of people like it. And that's
getting some love in the chat here. Yep.
Yeah, I love this record. I think the only Entombed I like more than this is the Crawl EP, which is
the Crawl EP rules. I like that Nirvana 2002 singer. I don't like Nicki's vocals on that. That's part of the reason. Part of it.
I mean, that's probably the most common complaint about Clandestine, but I don't get it. Like, I think his vocals are awesome.
Yeah,
he just sounds like a pissed fucking Muppet. It's rad.
Right. Okay.
But that's an honorable mention, I guess.
Sure. Okay. Melanie, we'll circle back to you with your number 8. Now we're actually getting to Eric's numbers here, so we'll do your number 8.
So Melanie,
my number 8.
Who is your 8th favorite band of all time? Who did you pick for your 8th favorite band?
Slayer. I don't have anything pulled. I just realized I didn't pull any of the Slayer, which is funny because I just showed you literally every single album the last stream that we did together.
We did, yeah.
Yeah, Slayer, undoubtedly one of my all-time favorite bands, which I think was very obvious in the last stream that we did together. About 1 or 2 duds, in my opinion, in their discography, but still one of the most influential bands in my life. One of the most demonic. I'm using the quotes because as we all know, they're not true Satanists. Bands that just really took me in and swallowed me whole.
I actually didn't get married in a church. He got married.
But yeah, again, I like one of those bands I'll listen to any day of the week. Doesn't matter the mood. If it's on the radio, I'll crank it. If I hear it in a playlist, I'll crank the song. I'll pull it off the shelf. If I just want to listen to something I'm familiar and I absolutely love, I'll pull their music off the shelf. One of the best bands I've ever seen live. I've seen them live several times. Even in the Repentless tour, thought they did great. I wish it was the original band, but it's okay. I got to see them back in the heyday of the original band, so it was all right. Yeah, they're not Kingdom Diamond. Don't worry. But yeah, Slayer. I feel like that was kind of just a no-brainer. Slayer was going to be within my top 10, especially for the people that know me well and watched our last stream and then the video that I put out on my channel. And I still don't get sick of them ever, especially those first 5 albums. I don't ever get sick of those albums.
Those are hard to mess with.
Yep.
Yeah. I mean, I listened to Hell Awaits today. Just saw it sitting there when I was packing up my records, and I was like, all right, I'll leave this one out and I'll listen to it, which I've been doing as I'm packing up my records, because for people that don't know, I'm going to be moving in a couple of weeks, and it's been real tough packing up my records because I'll start putting stuff in a box and be like, oh, I haven't listened to that in a while, and I'll take it out, and it's just defeating the purpose here of moving and packing things that I need to be doing right now. But yeah, Slayer. So that's a no-brainer.
Moving and packing is the worst.
I haven't done it in like 7 years, so I'm not looking forward to this.
It was 8 years between moves for me, and fucking it was a nightmare. Just a
Yeah.
nightmare. It didn't help that the people helping me were illiterate and didn't realize that there were like rooms labeled on every box. So like I'm finding kitchen boxes in the bedroom and like bedroom boxes in the living room and bathroom boxes in the kitchen, and it's just, oh my god, it was a nightmare. Anyway.
And the longer you live in a place, the more crap you acquire. So the more every time you move more and more and more and more. It's crazy.
Dude, 25 small size U-Haul boxes of records.
Nice.
Bananas.
Or not nice. I mean, it depends
It's
on how
great until you have to move them.
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. We'll swing back around to Eric here, and with his number 8 favorite
All right,
band of all time.
See, I just realized that you wanted these in order.
Well, we'll swing back around to you in a minute. Go to Alan.
No, it's good. I can do this. I did it. Okay. So, I kind of looked at approach this from a different perspective, because like in order for me to like really give you like a legitimate top 10, like I'm gonna have to like do math and fucking figure shit out. Like this is just kind of all off the top of my head. Like this is all stuff that has longevity for me, but I wouldn't say it's like my favorite shit in the universe, but like it's definitely stuff that I have reached for incessantly throughout the years since discovering it. So I guess if I was to put something last, it would be this godly compilation of Beharit tracks.
Yeah, that's a good one.
I know a lot of people don't like Beharit's ambient stuff, but like
I don't mind it.
I don't want an entire album of ambient Beharit, which is one of the things I really love about this record, is that it has something from just about every era on it. And it's put together in a way that like it's not like a cluster of like black metal followed by a cluster of weirdo black metal followed by a cluster of ambient tracks. It's intermixed. So you're going to get like an ambient cut after a black metal cut after a weirdo cut, you know, like it's just put together really well. And probably, I want to say this was the first Beharit album I ever owned back in the day. Whenever this came out, I got it off of blackmetal.com.
Yep.
In its heyday. A nice little gatefold, you know, you got the nudes. I'm still trying to figure out my lighting in here, so there's like a shit ton of glare everywhere. Like it sucks. But
I got my copy of that from blackmetal.com as well, Eric. We're like two people on different sides of the world staring at the same star, wishing at night.
No, man, it's like that. It's like that song that Fievel sings in American Tail.
It is. It is. Yep.
But yeah, I guess that'd be like my number 8 at this point.
All right.
I do really love this record. I love Drawing Down the Moon also. But honestly, I reach for this more often. And I don't really know why that is, because I'm not a big fan of Oath of Black Blood, but I know there's tracks off of that on here. I just like how this is put together better, I think. I'm not sure.
What'd you think of Engram? I ended up really liking that one. I thought that was probably his best.
It's good, but you know, I don't really, when I reach for Beharit, I'm not reaching for like mature black metal. Like I'm reaching for like primal, primitive, shitty sounding black metal. Like I know that sounds derogatory, but like that's one of the things I appreciate about that band is how they bring that to the table.
Yeah.
Because it was new when they were doing it. Like it was them and Blasphemy and like Impaled Nazarene and like Holocausto out of Brazil doing that sound for the most part. So
Absolutely.
it wasn't like trod into the ground by everybody's combat boots and bullet belts.
Right. All right, Eric. I'm sorry. I looked at Eric and moved Alan over. All right, Alan.
All good. It's all good.
Number eight.
All right, number 8, a band we have talked about many times over the heavy metallurgy lifespan. Came in at number 8. It's Blind Guardian. So some German power metal here, of course. This is a band I used to rank higher. A good example of what we talked about earlier. And like Eric said, these kind of things change, a lot over time. If I had done this ranking, several years ago, Blind Guardian would probably easily have been in the top 2 or 3. But and the reason for that is they've released, a just almost untouchable string of, perfect German power speed metal albums from the late 80s all through the 90s. From the debut here with Battalions of Fear all the way up until the end of Nightfall in Middle Earth. That's an almost perfect run of albums. It's close. It's really close. The problem you run into is that once you get to the 21st century, Blind Guardian slowed down production a lot. You went from getting an album every couple of years to maybe one every 4 or 5 years. And a lot of those albums just aren't as strong. Some of them are okay. Some of them are a bit weak, in my opinion. The bottom line is kind of this, and I've had to come to realize this, and it's knocked Blind Guardian down a few pegs over time. If you told me right now that I never get to hear any 21st century Blind Guardian record ever again, okay, I'm okay with that. I don't feel like I'm losing anything essential. And again, there's some albums there that I do like. There's some good songs scattered around, but the output they've had for the past couple of decades is just a big step down from their heyday in the 80s and 90s for me. Still a long enough streak of really high quality stuff that they're still in my top 10, but they are definitely lower than they would have been maybe a decade ago when it felt like they've just hit one or two maybe mediocre albums. Yeah, at this point I just don't, they're not going to be back on that same level they once were, and that's okay. They don't have to be. But it has shifted them a lot further down the top 10. Still an excellent band, still love their stuff, but like I said, one of the things I really wanted to see was, consistency over time for these bands that I have ranked higher. And I feel like Blind Guardian's consistency dropped off once we got past Nightfall and Middle Earth. So they only come in at number 8, but they are still number 8. That's Blind Guardian. That's for me. Marty, your turn for number 8.
All right. Well, this band blew me away, and these early records still blow me away. And I can't imagine not being able to listen to them. And that would be Creator, Pleasure to Kill, Extreme Aggression. I also, Flag of Hate, Endless Pain, all that stuff. Endless Pain was very immature-ish, but I still liked it. This album, however, is just a scathing masterpiece. So dark, so ripping. Milla's vocals are just absolutely insane. The band is perfect, and they really refined it on this album. Terrible Certainty was a transitional record. I loved it when it came out. Going back, we did an album club review on it, and it didn't hold up as well as I thought it would, which was kind of amazing. But this one is still my favorite, absolute favorite by this band. I don't know what it is. They just got so mature. Their songwriting is so good. The riffs are so good. They kind of switched from the teenage, demon stuff to social political lyrics. Did they continue on putting out great material? No, they struggled a lot. The 90s were tough on a lot of bands like this. They had Endorama, which was their stab at being gothic. Renewal was a little bit of a hardcore influence. That album held up better. I hated it when it came out, but listening to it again, I don't mind it as much. So some of these might be grower records, but Creator, these guys really changed my ear when it came from starting to appreciate bands that had harsh vocals as opposed to, I come from Kiss. So, my early, I preferred, Dio and Sabbath and all that stuff. The clean singing, it took bands like this that really got me interested in the harsh vocals, because it is getting into harsh vocals and harsh music is a process. And these guys are my number 8.
Have you listened to the new album?
Yeah, I have it. It's okay.
It's very polished.
Very polished. The last one's almost seemed like a Swedish melodic death metal album a lot to me. I don't know.
I don't hate it. It's very modern, polished. It's
very modern. Weird. They're still doing it, and they still have their fan base, which is killer. But I'm buying the stuff because I'm interested, and I'm always going to give them a chance because of their past. Yeah. But I listened to them a couple times, and they go on the rack, and that's just where they sit.
Yeah, that's where it's set. I haven't even shown it on my channel or anything.
And that was another VC thing. When that thing came out, everybody in the metal VC's like, this is so great. This is so great. And I'm like, okay, I buy it. And I'm like, it's not great. It's good. It's not great. But, like this record. Everybody knows how great it is. It's not. It's very average.
I have it. I'll probably do it. Give it away. If anybody wants to, let me know. Just shoot me a message.
You can give away Coma of Souls. I mean, it's not great, but it's
no. This is it's Razor, the new Razor album, Cycle of Contempt.
Yeah, okay, we'll get rid of that for sure.
Yeah, Coma of Souls, I like it, but it's not. Anyway, we won't get into that. That's like Clandestine to me. I like it, but I don't love it. Anyway, Mel, you're back. You're number 7.
So if anybody follows me on Instagram, you probably have noticed for the last 2 weeks I've been doing this every day. But Cannibal Corpse has always been one of my all-time favorite bands. And they still hold up to this day to me. So the last 2 weeks I've been listening to every single one of their albums because there's a few there that I haven't listened to in years. And I realized I completed my collection, which I didn't quite realize I had all of them until I started doing this. I thought for sure I was missing a few. So yeah, this is probably one of the first death metal bands that I admittedly was scared to listen to just because of that, the album covers that they had. And then when I finally did, and I'm going to be honest with you, it was after Ace Ventura came out and Hammer Smash Face. That was when I finally gave him a chance. And I absolutely fell in love with it, but I hid it for so long because I didn't know if my parents would be okay with it, right? Like it was one of those things. But as I've gotten older and just listening to death metal and it just being like my life, this band still holds up to me like a very high pedestal to me, even though, you know, Corpse Grinder, the whole change with Chris Barnes and Corpse Grinder, there's that battle of like, or is it the first 4 albums are the only true Cannibal Corpse albums? Those are the ones that are the best. And then anything after that sucks or whatever else. I don't feel that way at all, but I will admit this is probably one of my all-time favorite death metal records. And I still listen to it all the time. And to the point of where I've had at one point 10 different versions of it on vinyl. I recently sold off most of those because I realized
does things like that, Alan. Jeez, I mean, where's the self-control, really?
Like every time Metal Blade or Back on Black reissued these, I'm like, I gotta get it. I don't know why. Metal Black on Black sounds like garbage, but I'm still gonna buy it, you know. Like, and I finally listened to them all and kept the ones that still sounded good and were still in good. But yeah, if I'm in the mood for Chris Barnes, The Bleeding are the two that I generally listen to the most. Even The Bleeding is quite possibly one of the worst lyrically themed records you could ever own. And then if I'm in the mood for Pat O'Brien riffs, I pull out the Skeletal Domain and Red Before Black and those later Corpse Grinder records. I think Pat O'Brien brought a juicy riff style to their discography that I absolutely love. And they're reissuing these now again. They just did Gallery, Vile, and The Bleeding. And yes, I did buy those fucking variants for no reason. But yeah, I just couldn't. They're just one of my all-time favorite bands. I definitely have acted like, oh, it's the mainstream band. Like, yeah, whatever. They're kind of overrated, but no, they're one of my old favorite death metal bands. It's hard to not say this. So yeah, and I am going to be doing a stream of all their albums someday.
I've never listened
to the time.
I've never listened to a Corpse Grinder Cannibal Corpse record.
They're good.
Really?
They're good.
They're good.
Are they great? No, but they're good.
The first 4, I love the first 4, but
yeah.
And I love Monstrosity, that first Monstrosity record.
Oh, Imperial Doom rules. That's his best vocal performance, really.
Yeah.
It's great.
You just gotta for me, obviously the first 4 are the best. I'll admit that. And it's hard to say that because I just despise Chris Barnes as well as pretty much everybody else does.
He's a ridiculous person.
Yeah, but I guess for me, if I'm in the mood for a different style of death metal that is not over the top, very well-oiled machine, meat and potatoes, Corpse Grinder does it good. They still continue on with that good sound. They still have a really good live set. I liked their album that they put out 2 years ago. I thought it was good. I mean, Eric Rutan, he added Eric Rutan's a great guitarist. He's a great producer. But I do think that eventually they should probably start hanging it up. I'm a little bit worried that they're getting to that point now where they're going to be 23 records in and people are just going to be like, all right, enough. We've heard it already. Because some of their albums do get very repetitive. They do sound the same.
Their sales are strong though. They're one of the biggest bands in death metal, so they're going to keep going until.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
I say for that reason and just the fact that their longevity and how successful they are, for those particular reasons, is probably one of the best death metal bands. For that reason, a lot of people will disagree with me on that, just because their own personal take and feelings. But yeah, it's hard to deny and say that they're not one of my favorite bands, even though I hate their album covers. Just the goriness I've always really never been a big fan of. And I when I have them sitting out, I have them upside down because my kids will walk in and they don't need to see the mom eating a baby's head with the vagina hanging out. That stuff kind of I get tired of.
I mean, Butchered at Birth and Tomb of the Mutilated are two of the most sickest album covers really ever. I mean, really,
there's shower curtains and bedspreads with those album covers on them. I've seen them.
Nice.
Really takes you to a space.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, that's always been the hokiness of the band that I don't really care for. I know some people just eat it up and they love it. But they've gotten away from that on a couple of album covers, like Kill. Kill is just kill. Just the word kill.
Yep.
And then the last album they did two different variants of the mom eating the baby naked and all that stuff, and then that stupid face with the tongue. But yeah, it is what it is. But that goriness of death metal, I get kind of tired of it after a while.
I know it's a common complaint. I just won't buy anything with that logo. That logo just kills me. I just fucking hate it. I fucking hate it so much.
Yeah, I mean, this.
I remember when that came in a font pack for Windows 2.0.
Yeah, that's so true. Yeah, people really. If I ever show this record anywhere, or if I show a reissue, they're like, "That's not the original logo," and I'm like, "What? Okay, why are you yelling at me?" I don't want to try and find an original of this. I don't want to spend $200, $300.
What sort of a child leaves a band like, you guys can't use the logo I designed?
Chris Barnes, man.
Yeah, Chris Barnes.
Yeah.
It's the dreadlocks weighing down his brain.
Yeah, I think so.
He has me blocked on Twitter, by the way.
He blocked you on Twitter?
Yeah,
car commercial.
He went off about 200 Stab Wounds and Undeath and how they're just a shitty band and he can't believe where death metal is going these days. And I responded to him and I said, I find you to be quite hilarious and comical. You should come on my show. And he thought that I was being an asshole and he blocked me immediately. I was genuine. I thought it would have been funny if he actually had a conversation with me because I was curious to know who his thoughts around death metal and where it's going. But he was really dogging on those newer bands and just he went off to the point of where it was all over the metal blogs and people were eating it up and giving him all the attention.
Yeah. All right, Eric, you're number 7. I think 7.
Here's a little bit of a flex. Not a real flex. I don't want to tear my sleeves.
Right.
Probably this record right here.
Ooh, okay.
Disgorge. Oh yeah.
I don't know if you can read that. What is that? Chronic Corpora Infest.
Yeah, that's a great album.
Yeah, this is one of my pride and joys right here. I love this record. It's there's certain bands that I think just kind of epitomize ignorance for their particular countries, and this is peak Mexican death metal ignorance right here. This is just the best of the best when it comes to that. Comparable to Deranged out of Sweden, in their heyday. But I think this stuff's even more demented. I just love this record. It's so brutal and just gnarly and like just unrelenting. Like you have to have a lot of energy to listen to this thing and all the way through. But once it's on, like in that first riff hit, like you just want to like see it to the end. Basically, like, it's just fucking rules. Album that came after this, also real good. I think they put out 3 full lengths. Artwork for the album that came after this really disgusting. Like it's like an album cover I won't welcome into the collection.
I've got a CD from them, and it's like a guy on a table with his head with no brain in it. Is that the one?
Yeah.
The third one. I think that's the third record.
Oh, is
the
it?
second
Okay.
one. The second one is like
Space peeled off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The second one is a stillbirth, and it's like a stillbirth right after the fact.
Yeah, I used to have that, and I couldn't have that in my house.
Too gnarly, man.
It's too gnarly. Yeah.
Like the cover art that they use for the CD for this is gnarly enough, and that's just like basically like a chest autopsy. But like, gnarly band. Probably my favorite death metal band out of Mexico after like Shubnagruth or Transgression is another good one, but Trans Metal. Excuse me.
Trans Metal, yeah.
Not Transgression. Trans Metal was a little like they kind of like shifted styles every record, so like they're not. I wouldn't really call them a death metal band, but this, as far as death metal goes, this peak amazingness, really.
That's another one where I have like,
great too, but
yeah, that's another where I have several copies of that. I have like 2 tapes and all. It's ridiculous.
Well, I know. There's Parasitic reissued a bunch of their stuff a couple years back. There's a certain person who gleeks all the time on the internet was obsessed with that stuff for a long while. Trans Metal is one of yeah, that's true. It is a funny name.
Yeah,
I don't know
Corpse
if something's
Crystal.
lost in the translation, but
yeah, Corpse Crystal reissued Chronic Corpora Infest several times in the last year. I've just picked up every single reissue that he's done.
I had a couple of the American line copies, but this was like I really wanted this. This is Oz Productions. Yeah. Anyway,
Nice one.
Number 7.
Alan.
All right. Number 7. Another classic doom band for me. It's going to be Candlemass this go around. Candlemass comes in at number 7 for having a timeless streak of records from this one as their debut, and really for 2 straight decades. Most people always associate Candlemass with Messiah Marklin and those albums, but I really like the stuff they did in the 90s. Chapter 6 is not a bad album. It's not amazing, but I still like it. And I really like the 2 they did after that, Dactylus Glomerata and From the 13th Sun. That 13th Sun in particular is an incredible record.
That's a great record.
So yeah, you get a long streak of just quality Candlemass stuff, and they really did a ton to help sort of elevate doom throughout the 80s. And it wasn't we've talked about this before, it wasn't the most popular branch on the heavy metal tree for the 80s. It wasn't until the 90s and 2000s that doom really took off. Why is Candlemass number 7 and not a little bit higher with so many great albums that I rank so high? They've got the Blind Guardian problem, that once you get to the 21st century, the Candlemass catalog starts to become more inconsistent. Some people like the self-titled The Return of Messiah Marklin a lot. It's got some good songs on it, but that album always, even now going back and playing it, I feel a little disappointed by it.
I agree.
It's but it does have some strong tracks. Then of course you get into the Robert Lowe era, and there are some good albums there. I like the first couple that he did, but then by the time at the end of his tenure, they were having issues. And these last 2 that they've done, going back to their original vocalist from Epicus, they feel like they're decent albums, but they're not really essential albums. So the reason I've kind of got them back to back with Blind Guardian, it's kind of the same pattern of, if you told me right now I never get to hear any Candlemass from the 21st century ever again, I'll be like, well, I'll miss King of the Grey Isles a little bit, and but okay, I can live with that. I'm not going to shed a tear for losing that part of their catalog. Not saying it sucks. Not saying they're bad albums. Just saying that there's a big step down from their glory days, in my estimation. They're still going. They're still putting out, okay stuff, but yeah, we're very much at the point in the Candlemass cycle where I get the new album, I play it for a week or two, I put it on the shelf, and I kind of forget it even exists. In fact, you want to hear Candlemass, I go back and play something from their first 2 decades. I don't really look at the newer ones that much. So, an excellent band, great musicianship, killer riff writing for a long time. Even now, the riffs are solid. Just a band that, has, kind of, had, a step down in quality for me personally, in their more recent part of their discography. So they can't go any higher than 7. After this point, we're going to be getting into some bands that, they're a little more consistent, maybe a little deeper in their catalog. We'll get to that though. So Marty, your turn for number 7.
All right. Bathory. I really love the black metal era, but here is when he decided to start trying to take on a more Manowar Metallica vibe. That's where this music really got special for me. And this album's my favorite of the batch. Blood on Ice. I like Hammerheart. I love Under the Sign of the Black Mark. A lot of great albums, influential in a lot of different fronts. But this stuff for me is just the most atmospheric, most world building. This album in particular is a concept album. And he nails it on here. His vocals are always a little bit shaky, but that's part of the charm of Bathory for me. And I just love the melodies he comes up with and the passion and the atmosphere. And even on his last 2 albums, the Nordland series, he was right back on track. He had a little bit of time there where he was messing with pseudo thrash and drum machines and whatnot, and it just varying results. But he ended on a high note, and this album kind of it took the best parts of Hammerheart and Twilight of the Gods and made them into a truly, from start to finish, classic epic album. Love Bathory. Number 7. Melanie.
Thinking about how I probably should have put Bathory. No. Damn.
That's one I didn't, and that's one I kind of overlooked in all of this mess. Bathory. I don't think they would have made my top 10, but I didn't really stop and consider them either. That's one even I blanked on.
I totally missed Black Sabbath. Anyway.
Oh my God! Really?
Tommy's going to have a fit over that one.
Oh boy!
Someone mentioned him in the chat. I'm like, oh yeah, that would have been a good one to put on there.
All right, we're at 6 now. Yeah.
Yep.
I had my
We're at number 6. Yeah. Yes.
I'll be back. All right, number 6. No question whatsoever. This is another band that I have always loved. This is my favorite album by them. Although this goes back and forth between Effigy too. I listen to Effigy quite a bit as well. Just a style that getting into death metal was the one that I gravitated towards when I first ever heard it. I think they have one of the most consistent discographies. I don't not like an album that they put out. I like their newer stuff that they've put out. Frank Mullen is just god tier vocalist in my opinion. I've often joked that I would have his baby if he had ever asked me. Terrence Hobbs, no question. Seen him live several times. I'm sad, that they pretty much are just touring now. I don't think they're going to be making any new music or anything like that. New York death metal's finest. They've got those brutal riffs in there. Their style changes as they get older. There's a little bit of that, polishness that they add into there, and that nuclear blast shit that kind of ruined them just a smidge. But I do like Pinnacle, Bedlam, and Blood Oath, and they just reissued those. So if anybody's looking for that, they're up for sale right now. Yeah, I absolutely love this band. So see. My wife is gonna crack up at that. Yeah, I teetered on this and Immolation because I go really back and forth with Immolation being one of my all-time favorite bands too. But I did Suffocation because this is one of those bands where I just smile on my face no matter time of the day. I'll sleep with this music on if it were my choice. So yeah, and this is the discography that I'm currently hunting now. Trying to get everything on wax. I need one more, and I'm not going to pay $200 for it. So unfortunately, they need to do some reissues for me, and that's the self-titled Suffocation that was on Relapse, whatever that was. I'm shocked Relapse hasn't reissued that yet. They reissued everything.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt.
No, that's fine.
Is that the one with the reddish, the red hue cover?
No, that's Blood Oath. It's the one that is just a boring ass cover. It's just boring. There's like literally nothing on it. It just says Suffocation. And it's like some design.
Oh, it's self-titled. It's self-titled. Yeah.
Yeah.
I have that one on vinyl actually.
Well, aren't you? That's a hard flex. I bought a CD for like $30 on Discogs 2 years ago because it's been out of press.
I got it at a local shop for under $20. They didn't know what they had apparently.
No,
yeah,
She says with only a little bit of bile in her throat.
Yeah. Eric actually sent me a copy of that record you're holding in your hand right there. He sent me a bootleg of it, and it sounds pretty damn good.
Interesting. Yeah.
I was thinking of Despise the Sun. Sorry.
No, you sent me Pierce from Within.
No, I know. I was talking about the red one that I was thinking it was.
No, Despise the Sun. Yeah, that's the EP. One of
that's
the
good. That Despise the Sun EP rules.
They have a used copy of one of my locals. I might go grab it. I don't know.
You should. They just reissued it. Relapse just did that.
But why buy a reissue when I can get an original?
Oh God. I really need to I live in Tampa. You would think these things would be easier for me to find in the record stores, but it's
Death Metal Surrogacy. That's how you make your money, to buy all the original pressings.
Yeah, I guess.
All right. Mr. Bauer, we have got number 6. Heartburn. Love it. Aha. A twofer.
Since Alan just talked about it, this record rules. I mean, I back everything Alan said about this record. I wouldn't say, I guess it probably is my favorite Candlemass. It's also the first Candlemass I ever heard. Got the Leviathan Records cassette here.
Cool.
Yeah, it rules. As far as traditional Doom goes, this is generally, I'm either going to reach for probably this or Nightfall, or one of the first two Solitude Eternus records. As far as the really epic traditional Doom goes. Yeah. But this is just it's untouchable. Starting with Solitude, Demon's Gate, everything on here is good. Blackstone Wielder, just heavy, and the vocals are just phenomenal. And it's funny because this is his first record with them, and then before that he was did that Nemesis project, which I never heard that. I've never bothered to listen to that.
I have a CD of that. It sounds like just demo versions of a lot of that stuff.
Isn't that what it is? Basically, that's what I've been told anyway. But I love this, man. I know Peaceville just did a really nice reissue of this where they basically copied the Leviathan Records stuff, kind of like how Wax Maniacs would do with their Sodom reissues and whatnot. But it looks really good. I might grab that at some point. But this tape is all I got. I've got 2 J cards for this, but only 1 tape. It's weird. Anyway. I love this record. It's awesome. It's consistently been, as far as metal goes, in probably a top 20 countdown, this would exist for sure. As far as Doom goes, top top 10, top 5, maybe material. Love it. Just depends on the type of doom you're in the mood for, because I'm not always in that trad mood. Sometimes I want to hear grief or, I hate God.
Right.
I wouldn't put them in the same category, really. Anyway.
All right. Alan, number 7.
6.
Whatever. You sure?
Yes.
Yeah, it's 6.
All right.
Yes, that was 6.
Yeah, this was number 6. Okay, Tommy. Tommy's been asking for someone to get to this band for a while now, and it is time. And since Marty completely forgot them, we'll cover this base. Number 6 on my list is Black Sabbath. And I picked this one as my representative because freaking killer album for sure. Sabbath, of course, it needs no introduction, needs no background. Everybody knows this band and their catalog. Why did Black Sabbath make it further up the chain than all the other bands? Again, it's not just influence or anything like that. We're talking favorite bands. And the reason Black Sabbath ranks so high for me is that they went through, different eras, different transitions, different singers, slightly different styles over time. And most of the time, they still managed to deliver. I know there are some people that only like one particular era, Ozzy, or only like Dio or such. I really kind of like almost all of them. The first 5 or so Ozzy albums are great. The last couple, okay, they were stumbling by then, but then they reinvent themselves with Dio at the helm and make 2 great albums. Then they have Gillan on for an album that it took me a long time to get there, but I've kind of come around a bit on Born Again, and it's a fun listen. Then they bring in Tony Martin, and you have that era where they were very unpopular, but a lot of those albums are very good as well. So, and after that, you have, this happens, Dio comes back, Martin comes back, et cetera, et cetera. But you have a lot of very good albums, all even through those later phases of Black Sabbath's career. Okay, no, there's not another Master of Reality hiding, in the earlier mid '90s or anything like that. And yes, you have to get past the production on Forbidden, and there's some missteps. Something people have pointed out in the chat, and Marty, you've said this many times too. When you get into bands like this, they have these massively long catalogs. There's going to be some bumps in the road. I don't think there's any band we're going to talk about tonight that has a perfect catalog. But Sabbath, the bumps are kind of spread out. If there's a bump, they always seemed to bounce back from it and, get back on the road and put out, some more solid albums. So, yeah, this one surprised me a little bit that it ended up coming in this high. I like Sabbath. I've always liked Sabbath, but I'd never really stopped and thought about where do they rank in the overall hierarchy. But yeah, when I look, through their catalog, I just see, a ton of good albums, several that are great or, classic albums, and really not that many albums that I dislike. So yeah, it's a very consistent catalog over a very long period of time, even dealing with, a lot of turmoil and, lineup changes. And, for that, yeah, I think Black Sabbath deserves to be up here almost in the top 5. I really kind of wanted to shoehorn them in the top 5, but there is just not room because, well, there's already 5 bands there. But Black Sabbath is, knocking on the top 5 at number 6 for me. Marty, what have you got at number 6?
Number 6. Man, when this... there was a local college radio station that would play... Keith was the guy's name. He always sounded very stoned. And he spun metal records, and Merciful Fate was one of the songs he played that had a humongous impact on me. And again, I've said it a bunch of times, I didn't grow up in a religious house, but I heard this record and the one before it and was pretty sure the devil was real. Upside down crosses on my Trapper Keeper ensued. But there is no understating the impact of Merciful Fate when it comes to building a mystical, very occult and scary atmosphere. This album in particular, and since I consider this the third Merciful Fate record, I'm pulling King Diamond here as well. So I'm cheating a little bit, Alan. Sorry, but
we'll let this one go.
these albums feel very, very similar to me. Of course, I went on to worship a good chunk of the King Diamond catalog as well. There's a couple towards the end that are starting to lose me a little bit. I have high hopes for the new one though. But Merciful Fate, even their comeback records, In the Shadows was good. Time was good.
6.
Into the Unknown, not great, but there's a lot of killer riffs. And Dead Again had some good stuff too. So they've had a pretty damn good catalog, really. And the fact that Merciful Fate was going at the same time King Diamond was, he was kind of double dipping a little bit. But
yeah,
there is just, when it comes to creepy atmospheric metal, Merciful Fate, they claim the throne as far as I'm concerned. This record is satanic panic wrapped into amazing metal riffs. It's killer.
Yeah. That's an absolute, great pick, Marty. The only reason I didn't consider Merciful Fate for this was I felt the catalog's a little short, especially that early classic run it's 2 albums and an EP. And yeah, I agree with your take on the 90s albums. There's some good ones, but then there's also some kind of all right ones. So yeah. I just feel like they didn't have quite a long enough catalog to compare to some of these other bands I'm talking about for my list. But that's just the way I built my list. They're definitely, a huge band, and I think a lot of people would have them as one of their top 10 favorites.
All right. Number 5, I guess. I'm having a hard time keeping track here. Yes.
We are in the top. Yes, it's time to start the top 5.
I too could not pick between King Diamond or Merciful Fate. So I too picked both as my number 5.
You can cheat off my paper. That's fine.
For all the reasons that Marty said, and then just in the fact that even though some of their later albums are kind of stinkers here and there, I still listen to them. I still enjoy them. I don't think they're bad by any means. Not the first ones that I pull, that's for sure.
In the Shadows and Time are really good records. Both those records are really, really good.
I actually just did another King Diamond purge this week.
Purge?
Binge. Sorry, binge.
Oh, purge means you got rid of them.
Yeah, where I went through and listened to every single one of his albums. And some of those later ones, like Graveyard and all those other ones that I've never really listened to that much, just hit me a little bit different this time. So
Graveyard's a good record too. It's it's creepy for the wrong reasons. Yeah.
And Voodoo was the other one that I really started to like when I was listening to this week. Yeah, but yeah, this is one of the first ever, his vocal style I hated when I first heard it.
Me too.
As a kid. And then for whatever reason, I heard this album and it all changed for me. For something about this album, just one of the greatest album openers of all time.
Oh yeah.
In my opinion. And then from there, I just became obsessed. And I think a lot of it had to do with just the overall show that he puts on, and just his themes of writing and the face paint and just the over top production in terms of his live show and his overall demeanor is what I kind of just fell in love with. Maybe not so much the music, but then I listened to the music. I'm like, no, I absolutely love the music to the point of where I've got the picture discs back there hanging on my wall. And yeah, so I need to buckle down and just get some more of these on vinyl. But for now, I've got the classics.
Denner and Sherman were the guitar team. The way they wrote riffs that interlocked. They just amazing. The way they traded solos and the way otherworldly. Great.
Yeah, and Andy LaRocque is just.
Oh, he doesn't play a wrong note ever. Yeah,
I feel like he's one of the most underrated metal guitarists. People forget about him. Just don't. He's amazing. His work on these albums are incredible. So, yeah. Oh God! Every time I pull these out, I'm like, "Well, this is all I'm listening to now." So,
yeah.
forget the rest of my 1,000 albums that I have.
Yep. Not a bad problem to have, though. It's good shit.
Yeah, that's true.
All right, Eric.
Oh goodness. Okay, this probably. It's one of my favorite. I'm trying to. Well, okay, this is easily one of my favorite black metal records of all time. Varathron.
Oh yeah.
Oh, cool.
Walpurgis Nacht. This is my favorite Varathron record. It's
Right
also
on.
again, huh?
Right on.
Yeah. It's also my first Verathron that I ever heard, and was probably my intro to Greek black metal back in the day. Led me to Rotting Christ. I think had just dropped Triarchy of the Lost Lovers at the time that I discovered this, and then Thou Art Lord I discovered through this, and the more obscure Greek shit, which really impressed me at the time because it had its own identity, whereas I felt like a lot of the Norwegian and Swedish stuff that I was hearing was more or less interchangeable, and I still kind of feel that way about a lot of that stuff. This stuff is really just like, it's raw, but at the same time, it's raw and evil, but at the same time, it's like really, I don't know, for lack of a better term, majestic, as lame as that might sound, and almost emotional sounding. Just the melodicism, how it plays with like the raw black metal sound that they were going for. I mean, you go back further than this, and like they were really raw, not quite like Rotting Christ, like grindcore level raw, but like really fucking raw. Some of their demos are almost unlistenable in that like that less Legion Noir sort of way. But yeah, this particular Verathron is just killer. I've come back to this for what, almost 30 years now, off and on since I discovered it. Just excellence all around.
Have you heard? It was kind of a comeback album for them called Stygian Forces of Scorn. That album rules.
Yeah, it's really good. It's really good.
Really rules.
I think most of their full lengths are really good.
Yeah.
You know, like I kind of with Rotting Christ, like I fall off the Rotting Christ wagon after Triarchy, honestly, just because they went way too goth metal, like for me.
Yeah,
you should check out Theogonia. Theogonia is kind of a ripper, kind of back in older style. That's the last album for me that really.
The last was that the last one put out or the one before it?
No, Theogonia was there's 4 records after it. Okay. It came out after Triarchy. It came out after.
Because the Dead Poem or something like that came out after
Dead Poem.
Yeah, it was 2 albums that came out. There was a Chronos and then another album and then Theogonia. Theogonia rips. Check that album out. It's a good one.
Yeah. Okay.
It's not all gothicy. It's just kind of fast and kind of old school Greek sounding. It's good.
I'll peep it. I mean, that record's great. It was hard to pick between that and
His Majesty at the Swamp.
Well, no, one of the first 2 Rotting Christ.
Passage to Arcturo.
Non-Servium.
Non-Servium. Thy Mighty Contract.
Thy Mighty Contract. Yeah, those 2. Sorry, I realized those weren't the first whatever, but it was like the first ones anybody like really paid attention to, like outside of like real underground black metal stands at the time. Which I was new to this shit in the mid 90s, mid to late 90s. So
you kind of fell off at Triarchy, or you still like Triarchy?
I like Triarchy a lot.
I did too. That was like that album was the one that made the Greek stuff click for me because I never could get into the Greek stuff for some reason. Then after that album made it click, I'm like, oh, what was I thinking? This shit's great.
No, I really like that record. Although. The first time I heard it and I looked at their band photos, I thought that they were too well dressed for black metal.
Right.
I was like, "Where's the armor?"
Right. Ripped clothing, the buried in the backyard clothing.
It's fun. It's fun. I did a pretty big purge not too long ago, and I got rid of most of my Norwegian and Swedish stuff. But I kept all the Greek stuff and I kept all the South American stuff, just because that's the stuff that really clicked for me. Like as far as black metal goes, not just in general, but
right. All right, Alan, you're number 5.
Yes, number 5. Didn't think this band would end up in the top 5, but sitting down and looking through it all this week, I realized, yep, they eke in there right ahead of Black Sabbath is Judas Priest. Judas Priest, of course, everyone knows, again, the band. We don't need to go into a detailed, discography or background or anything. But, and, I've always liked the band. I've listened to them for 30 years or so. So why didn't I recognize them as being like a top 5 band for me? It's in a way a little easy to overlook them because we're all so used to them. They're almost just, they become kind of, the background noise of your existence. They're there. Of course they're there. They've had, some, lulls at times, but the thing that really caught my eye when I started sitting down and looking at discography this week, for one thing, Priest has the longest discography of any band I looked at with 18 studio albums. And something I noticed going through the discography, after Rock and Roll, which by all accounts was, is sort of a disaster of a, recording session. The band was unhappy. People didn't know what the heck to do. Some people like the album, and that's fine. It's interesting and quirky, but get past Rock and Roll. And out of the next 11 albums the band makes, 10 of them I like or love. So, they have a streak of 10 out of 11 albums that are all thumbs up material. That's pretty impressive. There's only one band that's going to, surpass that kind of streak that I want to talk about a little bit later tonight. So yeah, basically everything from, this Gem, Sad Wings of Destiny, all the way through Painkiller. There's only one album in that streak that I'd be like, I can do without. And it shouldn't be hard to figure out which one it is. Yeah, after that, of course, the Ripper Owens albums don't impress much. Some of the Halford comeback albums have been, pretty good. One of them has been very good. Some of them have been a little weird, but they still have released, reasonable material with Halford's comeback. So this isn't a case where you get to the end of the 80s and the band never did anything else, or where Painkiller is their swan song. It's like, if you skip the Owens albums, you can still get some decent stuff later on in the Priest catalog. So the fact that, they have good albums from the 70s, 80s, 90s, aughts, teens, and 20s, that's a decent album in each of 6 decades. Okay, yeah. Number 5, Judas Priest. Hard to argue with it for me. So Priest is the first one in my top 5.
All right.
Your turn, Marty.
Top 5. This band, I think for a lot of people that were around in this time, kind of did a lot for them. Let's give them glory.
I struggled putting Metallica because I don't love a lot of their albums, and I acted like they didn't exist for a while there. But this last album that they put out has resurged my love for those first several albums.
There is no denying the impact this band had on me. Huge, and it got me thinking more in terms of faster music, heavier vocals. Again, like I was saying earlier with Creator, harsh vocals were a progression for me. I used to, in fact, the first Metallica song I ever heard was Fight Fire with Fire. And my buddy Scott played it for me. I laughed. I said, "This is ridiculous. This sucks." What is he just hollering, yelling, whatever? Of course, a week or two later, after listening to it, he dubbed it for me. I ended up being a convert, of course, and then getting Kill 'Em All, and the rest is history. And because of the impact that this band had on my growing up, they always get a pass for me. I'm always going to love them or hate them. I'm always going to check out their records. I own all their records, except I do not own the new one, and I don't own Lulu. I just don't give a shit. But they've had varying degrees of success with stuff for me. Thanks a lot, Wade. You're too kind. Thank you so much. I'm always gonna give them a shot. I'll probably get the new one eventually. I hope to find it cheap somewhere just to say I have it. we did that album club on it, and I probably listened to it more than I would have if I bought it. So I like it. It's okay. But this early stuff is essential in my opinion, and there's no understating the fact that Dave Mustaine had a lot to do with this early Metallica, and Megadeth also could have made my list. They didn't. They should have for certain albums. The first one, Killing Is My Business, Peace Sells, and Rust in Peace are 3 like god tier records for me as well. But Metallica, they're my number 5. They will always get a pass from me because of opening my mind to heavier, introducing me to thrash, and they changed the face of heavy music, and they did so also with touring. They changed the way bands tour. They deserve everything they get because they did the work. They did the work. Love them or hate them, they were out there and they dedicated their lives to it. And cheers to them for that.
Yeah, if we were doing a list of like, most important or most influential bands, Metallica would be there for sure. But I'm kind of in the same boat as Melanie. Most of their catalog, I do not give a fuck about. So they're just not for me. But yeah, absolutely fine that you've got them, and a lot of people would. That's absolutely fine.
I will say, last weekend, I was just on YouTube, and it was like in my like For You like homepage, some of their live like YouTube videos that they've been posting of their recent shows that they've been putting on.
They sound great.
Are phenomenal.
Yeah, they're still a great live band.
They sound so good. And I think that watching that, I watched all of them, really like made me realize like, man, I still absolutely love this band despite a lot of the albums I don't care for. But just in terms of like what they've done for metal as a whole, and like how they're still going, and they still have I'm pretty sure they're still the largest metal fan base in the world. Like I'm pretty sure they have.
They're one of the biggest bands in the world. I mean, it isn't just metal. It's their Black Album is still on the charts.
Everybody knows them. My parents know who Metallica is. They're 80.
Right. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I think that was it. And I struggled. I think they're at least in my top 20, and I teetered on putting them in my top 10. But I'm so stubborn, and those other albums just kill me. But yeah.
Yep. Brian, it's funny. A couple months ago, I actually bought this CD, and I have enjoyed the crap out of it. I also bought an early Tesla record that I've been enjoying a lot lately too.
Tesla just released a new record last week.
Yeah, they're back on the road.
Marty,
what?
Did you just say you bought a Tesla record?
Yeah, the first one.
Oh God.
I enjoyed it. I enjoy it. It's fun.
They have a new singer, right? Is that the new?
No, it's the same guy.
The same guy?
Yeah, same guy.
I mean, good for you, Marty. Good for you.
am I going to buy every Tesla record now? No, but I found it cheap and I bought it and I've enjoyed it.
Did you buy it new or used?
Used.
Okay. All right.
Rat. I also completed all the Rat vinyl that I needed too, so I'm happy. I'm happy with my Rat.
You only need one Rat release, and that's the '84 EP. After that, it's all just downhill.
I love Invasion. I love Invasion, and I also love Dancing Undercover. I think those are both.
I do like to picture you rocking out to Way Cool Jr.
Yep.
I hate that song so much. Oh my God. It's the worst. All right. Sorry, I didn't mean to derail there.
That's all I kind of did answering the Cinderella question. Anyway, Melanie, you are up with number 4.
Yeah. Number 4 is without a doubt Black Sabbath.
Yeah, whatever. Everybody in their Black Sabbath. Whatever.
These are
Marty's too busy with his Saint Anger vinyl to get Black Sabbath in here.
Oh, you're not going to live this down now. Just like Alan's never going to live down Don't Break the Oath.
Don't break the what?
But yeah, Black Sabbath. I love this band so much that I even bought Technical Ecstasy box set. So I think that says a lot.
It's a pretty cool box set.
So, but this is obviously one of my favorites. Obviously, Mob Rules. I love the Dio era. Even when he left and came back, I liked that album. Self-Titled obviously iconic. Even Seventh Star, even though I really should not be counted as a Black Sabbath record whatsoever, I enjoy it. It is a good album. I will say the heavy metallurgy streams that you did with Folly for the Black Sabbath records, I think I've watched it like maybe 3 times now, just because
nice.
I just love hearing about everybody's like memory road that they take with Black Sabbath and how they got into them and just the trip that they take down. So yeah, this is a band that I'm never gonna not love. I even like their last album, even though it's not great, but I still bought it. But yeah, again, like I said in my honorable mentions, I felt weird putting Black Sabbath and Ozzy there together. But yeah, it's always been Black Sabbath. One of my first ever metal concerts that I went to. Potty mouth. Yeah, Alan, you do have a potty mouth tonight.
There's been 2. Only 2.
But yeah, Black Sabbath had to be. It was hard not putting them in the top 3. But it was tough. But yeah, that's still a band that I listen to nonstop. But yeah, I recently, my parents moved down to Florida. They retired down to Florida, and he had like a box of tapes that he just had in the garage that was going to go to like an auction house. And I was like, the hell that's going to an auction house? Let me go through that first. And Self-Titled was in there. Sounds Perfect, still in great condition. Mob Rules was in there. I grabbed a bunch of those tapes. So these are like my grails.
Those are Columbia House classics. I could tell the Mob Rules is a Columbia House or a BMG, one of the two. It's awesome.
Yeah.
Oh, it's not. Okay.
Yeah, I don't know. It says, I don't know. I have no idea. I've never actually like looked, but they're still in like immaculate condition.
Oh, great shape. Perfect.
Yeah. So
Satori Hanzo, thanks for the contribution. We appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Satori.
The records are really funny. No.
All right. Now everybody's got the Black Sabbath out of their system, I hope. Eric. Black Sabbath.
This one right here.
That album rules.
Rapping Young Lad. Wow.
God, that album rules.
I don't really care about anything else he's ever released except for this record.
There's some good ones. I
know. I've heard most of them. I've heard a lot of his solo stuff, but this is like the one Devin record that I will swear by.
That thing rules.
Mr. Heavy Debbie goes, this record is fucking phenomenal. It's not just a great metal record, it's a great industrial record. It's a great electronic record. It's awesome. And it's funny because it's such a contrast to the first record they put out. Heavy as a really heavy thing, I think is what it was called.
Yep, that's what it was called.
I don't really care for that record. It's a little too goofy. It's a little too like hodgepodge, I suppose. Like it doesn't really make a lot of sense as an album. But this record just kills everything.
It destroys.
Just from the intro to fucking Velvet Kevorkian to fucking All Hail the New Flesh, that transition is excuse me, that transition is phenomenal. Oh my fucking God is just like godly. I mean, that's what you say when you hear that song is, oh my fucking God, this fucking song is amazing. I mean, then you get to the B-side. They do a killer cover of Room 429, which is funny because that's not my favorite song on that Cop Shoot Cop record, and I love that Cop Shoot Cop record that track comes off of. But this record just since it's come out has been a go-to, always in rotation. Almost.
And when I put that one on, I have to listen to it 4 times in a row. It's like, okay, well that was good. Another time would be better.
It's untouchable. It's just phenomenal.
Like vocals are so feral on it. Crazy. I can't believe anybody can scream like that.
It's just awesome.
All right. Number 4. Mr. Allen.
All right. This was a band I had a hard time figuring out where they were going to end up. At some points in the past, I would have called them my favorite band. At other points, I don't know if they would have been in the top 10. But this day and time, with everything kind of considered, It's time to get some pumpkins in the mix. Halloween comes in number 4 for me at this point. Here's the deal with Halloween and me. Their early stuff is my favorite heavy metal ever made. Walls of Jericho, this album, Keepers 2. As boring as it would be, all 3 of those albums could make a case for being in my top 10 heavy metal albums of all time. That's not a very diverse list or a very varied list, but that's just the way it plays out. The problem is then you get into the early and mid 90s releases, and there's some missteps there with a couple of albums that not so great. And when they switched into the Andy Darius years, I didn't mind it at first. I was not somebody who was like, oh, you can never replace the vocalist, and this new guy is not going to work or anything. But I just, over the course of the second album and the third album with Darius, I just lost interest. I wasn't listening to the style of metal as much, and when I felt like a lot of other bands were starting to lap Halloween. Blind Guardian in particular were just blowing the doors off of what Halloween was doing around some of those albums. And so I just kind of lost interest. I'd noticed whenever they put out a new album, but when there's a band that you feel like you've kind of drifted away from, and you're like, oh, they've put out a new album. What is it called? Rabbit Don't Come Easy. What the fuck is that album cover? That ain't going to draw you back. So I didn't mess with Halloween releases for a long time. And so it became one of those things where like, I love their old stuff. I wasn't interested in their new stuff. Marty got me, interested in digging, through the Darius material and giving it more of a chance. And there's actually, a lot of it is quite good. There's, a couple of albums in there that are, a little on the weak side, but especially I think once they got past like Rabbit, they really clicked. The lineup came together really strong. And you've got a good, strong run of albums through then, what is that? Like, the middle 2000s, up through the most recent reunion kind of project. And as such, now I look at the entire Halloween catalog. It's like, this is a very good catalog. There's a couple albums here and there that I'm not that fond of, but start to finish, they actually have that consistency all the way from the first EP and Walls of Jericho up through their most recent release being extremely good. A lot of the Darius albums being quite good. And so that's what got them way back up here on this list at number 4. Could they end up higher at some point? Maybe. As we mentioned at the start, my top 3 bands have kind of been my top 3 bands for a while now, so it's a little hard to edge in there. It would take some time, and like I said, it's only been the past few years I've gone back and started to appreciate the Andy Darius albums a lot more. If those really hold up, 5 years from now, and I'm still, really feeling like, the Darius albums are becoming even more and more of my favorites, maybe this displaces somebody in the top 3. It's possible, but, it's got, 3 big bands to kind of overcome for that. But yes, Halloween's catalog reconnecting with the Darius records, thanks to Marty, and just coming to appreciate that, they've actually been really consistent for an extremely long time with just a couple of hiccups that I don't like. Gets Halloween all the way to number 4 on my list of most favorite heavy bands. Marty hasn't talked Halloween yet, so
they might not even made my list. It's hard to say.
Well, you never know. We'll. I think we might be visiting the pumpkin patch at least one more time tonight, but maybe we'll do it right now. Who's your number 4, Marty?
That's hilarious, Marty.
Number 4 for me. I got to thank my buddy Jeff Wagner for getting me into this band, and that's Craig Zoller.
Oh, it ain't Halloween then.
Manila Road.
I thought you might have them up here.
This Atlantis Rising, after getting that fateful tape comp that Jeff made me a long time ago, back in the Maniacs days, that I wore out because it sounded so... Actually, I didn't wear it. I gave it to some friends who still listen to it. But anyway, this album came as a CD promo, and it was their comeback record. And I was blown away by it. How a band... I heard some of the classics on that tape, but hearing them trying to modernize their sound a little bit, but still sound like Manila Road. They even have Brian Patrick Hellroady on here doing backup vocals, and he sounds a lot like Mark. So you get a different singer, but you don't lose any of the Manila Road feel, which was a really smart thing for this band to do. This made me fall in love, and I started diving back in time. Obviously, this one is another big one for a lot of people. Their first non-street metal. This is more epic metal, where their first couple albums are kind of a street metal. Even up to their last album, To Kill a King. This album, it sounds like Manila Road, and it is actually a very somber record. It's kind of mellow, kind of sad sounding, but it's really good, really well done. Mark does a lot of vocals on this one, and I just love his strained, raspy singing style. At this point, he'd blown his vocals out, and he just kind of dug through it anyway. He would still do live, and he sounded weathered and like he strained a bit, but it still sounded great. This band, I own every single one of their records on vinyl, other than one. I am not going to get Circus Maximus on vinyl because I really hate that record. But I got all the rest. They could probably be higher, but man, what a great band. So unique. Love the guitar playing. Mark came from the 70s, and he's got a very open jam type of guitar playing. If you listen to a lot of Manila Road records in a row, a lot of the solos kind of start to feel the same because he's finding a key and just jamming. But it's still great. So good. I love this band. We've tried a lot on this channel to get people to turn on to them, and hopefully it has succeeded because they're worth listening to. Melanie.
Oh, Melanie said her top 3 had been set for a long time, so I'm really interested to see what's in it.
This is a no-brainer. People that know me just know that Death has always been one of my all-time favorite bands. This is probably one of my all-time favorite death metal records. I've often said if I were on a stranded island and I had to only pick one album to listen to on that island, this would be it, because I don't ever get tired of it, ever. But along with a lot of the discography, even the progressive years of, Sound of Perseverance, I love every single Death record. It comes in waves of, do I like this one the best over, Human, because Human, I go back and forth. I often say this is my favorite album, and then I listen to Human, and I'm like, that also might be my number 1, 2. They might be tied. But yeah, I've always absolutely loved this band. And I'm sad that I never got to see them live before Chuck passed away. This is one of those, bands that I wish I could have gotten to see live. I never will. And also another band that I buy all the goddamn reissues too. With the exception of Symbolic. They haven't reissued that in a really long time, but I do own that on vinyl. I wish, for the love of God, they would just do that finally. But yeah, I also own every single tape, every single CD. I have about 15 shirts, flags. This is one of those bands that I became obsessed with in my younger years. And Ed Repka has always been one of my favorite artists. So yeah, this was kind of no-brainer, number 3. The other 2, I'm probably going to get a lot of flack for, but I don't care. But this is definitely my number 3.
Good choice for number 3. And yeah, we can't take flack. They're our favorite band, so it doesn't matter what others think.
Oh, I'm definitely going to get flack. I'm just waiting.
I'm going to get flack too. It's fine. I'm used to it, so I can take it. Eric.
Oh, me?
You are up, sir.
Yeah. Okay. Crap. Hang on. Here we go. Okay. I'm just going to say this is like the best thrash record ever released.
Sepultura.
Schizophrenia, 10 out of 10 record. I have a friend that hilariously refers to this as their sellout record.
Okay. Didn't see that coming.
Well, when you compare it to the preceding records, it's definitely more accessible.
Yeah.
To imply that this is an accessible record. Anyway, I love this record. 10 out of 10. I would say, I don't know, it's hard for me to honestly pick sometimes between Sepultura albums. This one though is like, to me, just like, it's the perfect record for as far as their material goes. Sometimes I'll reach for a Rise over this album, but when it comes down to it, this is one I'm always in the mood to hear. Like, I'm never gonna be like, if somebody's like, "Hey man, why don't we spin that Sepultura Schizophrenia record?" I'm not gonna be like, "Nah, that doesn't sound good." Yeah, I just love this album. It's fucking stellar.
So if that's a 10 out of 10, where do you think Beneath the Remains sits? Is that a 10 out of 10 too?
9.
9.5.
It's like a 9.
Right on.
Beneath the Remains and Arise are probably both 9s for me. But I mean, that's to imply that anything going up to Arise is less than a 9. Like,
yeah.
I rate the first 2 records super highly. Yeah, I don't know. I just love this album. Like, it just is so good.
Are you gonna check out the remake of the first couple things?
What?
Morbid Visions? Yeah,
yeah.
The Cavalera brothers are reissuing they like re-recorded Morbid Visions and Bestial
Devastation.
Bestial Devastation.
Why would I want to hear re-recordings of those when they're perfect albums as they were? Like, I'm good.
It's impressive that they did it, but
give me a Cogumelo Morbid Visions any day of the week over anything else beyond that.
Was there a reason they were re-recording them? Were they trying to get rights back, or did they just want to try to see what they could do with modern
money,
toys and money? Yeah, okay,
money.
I mean, fair enough. That wasn't obviously a factor for them in the early days.
It's like the only derogatory thing I can say about that record is that it's like basically like a mirror of Persecution Mania by Sodom. But like, that's every Sepultura leading up to like Beneath the Remains basically is like a mirror of what Sodom was doing. I mean, you've got In the Sign of Evil, and you've got Bestial Devastation, you've got Obsessed by Cruelty, you've got Morbid Visions, and you've got Persecution Mania, and you've got Schizophrenia, and you've got Agent Orange, and then you've got Beneath the Remains. They aped Sodom almost exactly, but
wow, didn't even think of it that way.
It's a minor criticism.
Right on. Okay, Alan, you're number 3.
Number 3. All right, yeah. These 3 bands that I've got left, these have been my knee-jerk reaction for favorite bands for a long time. And number 3 is the one non-metal thing that is in my list. It is Misfits. Misfits has a weird catalog, of course. They have a decent chunk of material when you splice it all together, but it was spread out over a lot of different types of releases, singles and EPs and live albums and a couple of studio albums and then some reunion albums and compilations. They don't have nearly as much material as any other band I've talked about tonight. And I said, one of the things I was looking at when I picked bands for this is, bands that had put out a lot of stuff, that really had a legacy. It would have been really easy for me to pick, 10 new wave of British heavy metal bands that each recorded 2 fantastic singles, but that's 4 songs total. That's not so hard to do compared to, bands that have existed for 4 decades. But Misfits, when you string it all together, there's a lot of material there. And it's just another band that, they were very unique and original for their time, huge influence on lots of things. And I've just always, have greatly enjoyed playing their stuff, digging around for different versions of songs, going through, all the different accounts, and the stories and the lore about Misfits. They had the look, they had the image, they even had Joey Image. Glenn's vocals, of course, are, one of the classics, and for me personally, even up through the Graves era stuff, which I know a lot of folks don't like.
Ugh.
I like that stuff. I thought he did a very good job fronting the band. I know, obviously, no one cares about what he's doing these days, but that's a different issue.
Jason Hook does. Jason Hook loves it.
We should be doing a little bit of this.
Yeah. With the, I do have to, kind of bow out on Misfits once. Jerry takes over trying to sing for them. The man cannot sing. He never needed to be behind the mic. And so they've still kind of piddled around a bit in recent years with a single here or there. And there is a case here where I just do tap out and I just do not pay any attention to what they've done over the last 10 or 15 years. But all that other stuff, it's so fun. It's so different. And this band, it just, even on a lot of the other different wavelengths, it just clicks for me. The whole ancient, bad B sci-fi movies and serials thing. I grew up watching a lot of these with my dad and his friends because they collected old, 16 millimeter prints of these things. I knew who the Crimson Ghost was when I was 6 years old because I sat and watched the chapters of the Crimson Ghost in a basement on a reel-to-reel movie projector where some guy had, one of my dad's buddies, would just, hang up a, bed sheet or something. And that's how we'd spend our Saturday afternoons, eating popcorn and watching these old things. Yeah, there you go. From the 1930s and 40s. So even on that level, it's not just that, it makes kind of a cool band, brand or whatever. That kind of stuff was just instantly recognizable and, pushes all the right buttons for me. So never the most technically proficient band or anything like that, but I love their 50s throwback vibe because I grew up listening to all that stuff. That's what my dad collected. Was all that 50s, music, which this stuff drew so heavily from. So even though it's a weird catalog and it doesn't quite follow, the, rules or whatever I imposed on myself doing this, it doesn't matter. I love this band to death. Their stuff is just so much fun for me to listen to. So Misfits are one of my top 3 bands of all time.
I actually really love that band too. And I'm actually kind of sad that I didn't put them in the list. I grew up, my brother was obsessed with Misfits.
Oh, cool.
So I grew up with that.
Yeah.
I actually haven't listened to them in a really long time. So now I'm probably going to go do that.
Walk among us, Melanie. Walk among us. Come on. You can do it.
I think the German press of Evil Live.
Oh, nice. Cool. Mm-hmm.
I have the matching German press of Earth AD, but not Evil Live. So.
The Wolf's Blood. Yep. Yeah. I don't have a lot of old Misfits original vinyl because it's obviously insanely expensive, but I splice together what bootlegs and stuff I can. I've got, lots of random bootlegs and stuff of that band as well. It's always fun to dig through their various recordings that you can come across.
Is that Sam Hain or Samhain stuff good too?
Yeah, a lot of that stuff is pretty interesting, fun. It's different. It's got more of a gothic vibe to it for sure.
But it's not just good, it's rad.
It's very rad's kind of a good word for it. I like that description. It's different. It's out there, but it's still heavy. It's creepy, but in a different way.
I think you'd like November Coming Fire a lot.
That would be a good one to start with. Yeah,
that's probably the best known of the Sam Hain records, but or Samhain if you want to be like one of those pinky people.
If we're going to be truly hipster tonight.
But yeah, Sam Hain's rad.
Right on. Okay, they're one of those bands I've been meaning to check out. I just haven't got around to it.
Yeah, years when they did that box set around 2001, 2002 with all the Samhain stuff, and I blind bought it because they actually had a used copy at the record store not long after it came out. Somebody must have bought it and just did not like it. And so I'm just like, you know what? I've never heard a note by them, but I like Danzig and Misfits material enough. I'm just going to buy the thing and see where it goes. And yeah, I'm so glad I did because it's pretty cool stuff. Nice. I don't play it as much as Misfits, but it's interesting for sure. Rad is a very good adjective for Samhain. All right, Marty. Enough Glenn Danzig projects. You're into your top 3, sir.
Top 3.
Mm-hmm.
Iron Maiden. This is my favorite Maiden record. I preferred the Diano years, but there's no denying the love for Bruce as well. Favorites Somewhere in Time, Power Slave, Seventh Son. I even like I like Brave New World a lot. I mean, there's a lot of classics. It's Eternal, and this stuff influenced so much in metal. and there's no way that they were not going to make the list. And I could have showed a bunch of other records, but this is the one. I love the first one too. They're just so much good stuff. But their later years have been really inconsistent for me. I just have not enjoyed the last few records that much. It happens. Like we said, legacy bands, they just can't keep. It seems like they struggle. But Maiden are eternal classics. I could go on, but we're just going to stop right there. And we're going to go back to Melanie for her number 2.
All right.
To the nitty gritty.
Bring the heat, because I know it's coming. People are going to be upset. They're going to have a lot of words. I know the catalog is not deep whatsoever, but I have always just absolutely loved Rage Against the Machine. Say what you want about Tom Morello, politics aside, grandstanding aside, this music has changed my life in so many ways. It's very nostalgic. I have a lot of personal memories of my best friends and just being obsessed with this band in high school and just traveling around the Midwest and seeing them live, and not really fully diving into the political side of the band. I just loved the music. It was different than what I was normally listening to. It took me a while to get used to Zach De La Rocha's vocals and the rapping kind of ness that he brought to the music. But when it clicked, it clicked. And this is by far one of the greatest albums in my catalog of everything. I still listen to it all the time. I wish they would make new music, but I worry that if they didn't make new music, it wouldn't be nearly as good as what they've put out in the past. But every time I get an opportunity to see them go live, I will. Even to the point of loving them so much that I fell in love with Audio Slave. And I find I love those records. It's hard to beat Chris Cornell at that point too. It's just one of those bands where, like, if a member goes off and does a different project or a different solo thing, I listen to it, I like it, I buy it, I support it. There's very few bands that I do that with, and this is one of those bands. So, yeah, I've always loved this album. I love, obviously, all the bootlegs. I've got every single bootleg, every single live album, every ridiculous thing that's ever been released, every DVD, everything. And yeah, it still sticks with me. It is still perfect music to me. Nothing has changed. So yeah, I've always loved this. Always loved him. And I know people really, really despise Tom Morello and just a lot of the stuff that, he's very over the top with a lot of his, views and all of his advocacy and stuff like that. But whatever. I mean, at least he's not a Nazi. So there's that. But yeah, I just can't get past it. I know people give me a lot of hell for it. There's a lot of people that do not like Rage Against the Machine, but I think they're one of the greatest bands ever. But I think my number one is probably going to get more heat, so we'll see.
I always, the videos and stuff and watching them play live back in the 90s, it was infectious watching them. I mean, their music is so simplistic and catchy and heavy, and just seeing the crowd go nuts to it. I mean, there's something about it. I get it.
Oh God. The first time I saw them live was in Milwaukee. I'm blanking on the amphitheater, wherever they did that. And it was like,
well, it was a cellular arena is there.
Yeah, it's in the mountains of Milwaukee.
Milwaukee has mountains. I never noticed that when I was there.
They're hills. I don't know what you want to call it. I can't remember. It's the Milwaukee something. It was called like the Milwaukee Amphitheater back then, but I'm pretty sure they've changed the name since then. There was probably like 100,000 people at least, maybe, because it's an outdoor amphitheater. And it was the craziest show I've ever been a part of. It rained the whole time. People were like mudsliding down the hills, throwing mud everywhere. Everybody was just drenched in mud and wet. And Queens of the Stone Age opened up for them. And I hate that band, first of all. It was just like the most odd opening band. But when like Rage Against the Machine came on, and I think I stood there and cried for like a good solid 15 minutes. Like that's how you know you really love a band, when like you got goosebumps all over and you're just crying. Everybody else is rocking out and drinking and throwing their beers, and I'm standing there sobbing like a goddamn baby.
like you're a Taylor, like you're 13 at a Taylor Swift concert.
Right, yeah.
Did you have amnesia afterwards?
Yeah, did you
No, I did not.
experience
I did
after?
Well,
not.
then you don't love them enough.
Yeah.
You're not Swifty level dedicated.
Right.
I mean, I like got to the point where it was like every time I got paid, I was driving out to the mall to see what shirts they had, because Rage Against the Machine made so many different T-shirts back then. And I think I bought every single one of them. At one point, it was like I was wearing a Rage Against the Machine shirt almost every single day. Like the obsession was insane. I obviously was devastated when they said they were breaking up, but when they did the reunion tours stuff like that, it was good enough for me. So,
Right on. Eric is back for his number 2.
That's
By my
interesting,
math,
Melanie.
it's
I didn't know
number
you were
3.
into Rage that much. That's
Number
cool.
3. Oh, I'm on number 2.
It's number 2 time.
What? Really?
Yep, we're down to our top 2.
Well, you could show 2. I mean, you missed a couple at the beginning, so we didn't get your 9 or 10.
Voltor and Balor is no lot.
Right on.
This and Realm of Chaos are like the pinnacle. But Fourth Crusade's great, as is
For victory.
the what? Yeah, for victory. Yeah,
War Master. I mean, it's all good. It's all good.
I kind of love every Voltor, honestly. But okay, so number 2, I guess.
Oh yeah. Nice.
First thing out,
Cool.
yeah, the question is, what is the best Venom song and why is it bursting out?
Well, my answer would be Sacrifice. I love that song.
Sacrifice is great too. Witching Hour. I mean,
Yeah.
I'm
Bursting
hard
Out's up there.
to tell you a Venom track that I don't like, especially off of the really early records. But I mean, I dig Venom up to Primeval. I think is a great record. Like honestly, but
I even like Calm Before the Storm.
Castles of Ice, not so much.
Yeah.
But yeah, Primeval, Possessed, fucking At War with Satan. I love all that.
I think the least of the classic era is my least favorite is Possessed. I think it's the production. I don't know.
The production's not great. I just picked up an OG of that not too long ago. But I like that record, man. But yeah, Venom, dude, like epitomizes what I love about just like dirtbag heavy metal. Like it's fucking fantastic. I mean, it's satanic Motorhead. There's nothing to not like about Venom when it comes to these early records, especially the black metal and Welcome to Hell. Yeah, perfect shit. And Die Hard is on here with Acid Queen and Bursting Out, just stellar.
That's a good pick. I never would have considered Venom, but there was a time they would have made my top 10 back in the day for sure.
Yeah. Yeah,
Great
I love
stuff.
early Venom. I don't, I kind of lost track of them, as years went by. So I don't know their later stuff well enough to have them ranked this high. But yeah, the early stuff is hard. You can't beat it.
Yep.
All right, number
I'm gonna
2.
run across the street to grab my dinner, so I'm gonna be gone for like 5 minutes, but I'll be
Right on.
No problem.
Alan is back with his number 2.
Okay, number 2, because we haven't seen enough German heavy metal tonight. Got to go to that well one more time. And when we go to that well, we are going to be Running Wild. Running Wild, number 2. Yes, higher
So
than
good.
Blind Guardian and higher than Halloween. And the reason is pretty simple. Marty discussed their catalog earlier. He gave a good rundown of it. But the thing that stands out for me with Running Wild more than anything else is this little factoid. Their first 10 albums are all good, or great, or excellent, or classic.
It's true. It really is true.
They made 10 straight albums, beginning with their debut. This isn't a band that made a clunky debut. Like I don't have to say, well, after Rockarola, or something like that, or after you get the first Accept album out of your system. You start with this album, and for 9 more consecutive albums, there's not a single bad one. There's not a single mediocre one. in the batch. You have to get to album number 11, which is about 20 years later, before I hit a Running Wild album that I'm kind of like, maybe kind of mediocre. There's no other band I came across thinking through all this stuff for the past couple of weeks that has that kind of streak. Nobody has that kind of streak. Not Sabbath, not Priest, not Maiden, not Halloween, not Blind Guardian. None of them has that kind of streak. And while, yes, Marty's right. Now Running Wild eventually did hit a rough patch once you got into the earlier 2000s. They have 2 kind of reunion comeback albums under their belt now, and both of them are pretty decent.
Well, leading up to it, like Revelry, that album isn't great. Was that
Rivalry?
The name of it? Rivalry, yeah.
Yeah, there's a couple of rough ones, and yeah, there are 2 or 3 there that you could have done. We could have all done without. The one with the stupid Decepticon looking logo on it. It's Shadow something.
Shadow Cast. No, Shadow.
I don't even remember what it's called. It's bad. Yeah. So if Running Wild really had just retired when they said they were retiring, they would have been one of those cases like, well, like I mentioned with Blind Guardian and others, you get to the 2000s and the catalog dips a bit. But since they came back, they've actually put out 2 albums that are decent. Are they going to be quite on par with any of the earlier stuff? No, of course not. But they are albums. They can be, they're respectable. They're proud. I can say, hey, that's a good Running Wild album, and feeling glad that I bought the thing. And so as such, they're another one of these bands that they've gotten late into their career. They're pretty long in the tooth, of course, but they still seem capable of putting out quality stuff. Rolf is as much of a riff machine as Tony Iommi, or dude from Candlemass. Some of these guys just can't not write good riffs, and Rolf's in that rare company.
Yep.
That's why Running Wild's higher than these other German bands for me. 10 straight albums with not a single one that's even mediocre. And then, yes, you have some bumps in the road, but you come back around, and the past couple albums are respectable ones. So they're still able to do some decent stuff even after all these years. Running Wild, number 2. There's only one band I've got ranked higher than them, and that's me. And no more German metal for me either. We're staying out of Germany for number 1. I'll spoil that much.
Melanie, are you at all familiar with Running Wild?
I am not. No. It's one of those bands that I know who they are. I've seen their albums. I know people love them. I've just never really actually dove into them. Similar to Blind Guardian. Actually, I did listen to the new Blind Guardian today. I liked it.
It rips.
It's
okay.
The German power metal.
It's
It's okay. It's not a bad album.
The power metal, the German metal, like it hasn't always been a thing that I've been into. I mean, Halloween really got like that was really the first ever band that I ever really listened to like that. But yeah, I'll listen to them. I shouldn't, because I'll probably end up buying all 10 of their freaking albums after.
They got they got way more than 10, but they've got 10 really, really, really good.
They have let's see. Running Wild has 17 studio albums.
Oh my. Okay.
Well, just ask for guidance. Me and Alan can point you in the correct direction. So it's all good. All right.
Marty. Number 2 for you.
Here it is. Number 2.
Already know you're number 1.
No, that's reserved for another one. This band, to me, all eras. You got the the Kai Hansen era, rules. You got the Michael Kiske era, really rules. You got the Andy Darris era. Like Alan, when Andy Darris joined Halloween, I had moved on to heavier music. I still love the early Halloween stuff. And after Kiske, I'm like, I heard Darris on Master of the Rings. I'm like, this guy just isn't doing it for me. This is not what I want to hear. I disregarded him. And it was when they got back together and I saw them playing Wacken. I heard some of these Darris songs. I'm like, what was I thinking? This rules. His voice rules. It clicked with me in a complete another. So I ended up buying all the Darris records, and unlike Alan, I like 99.9% of all of them. There's a couple songs here and there on each album that might be but even those songs are still really good. I think Darius saved Halloween. He's a great songwriter. He's a great singer. I really having all this new material, all these albums with Darius on them has really revitalized my love of this band. And then when they put this record out, wow, they could have phoned this in. They could have got the band back together and been like, we could just try to make Keepers 3 or 4. They did Keepers of Legacy, write some cornball songs and be fine, and people will eat it up. But they didn't. These songs are layered. So many great solos, so many great songs on here, so many good songwriters in the band, and they all contributed to this. Other than Kiska did not write anything for this one, but the only person that doesn't write songs in this band is the drummer, Danny. The rest of them, they all write. And they wrote an amazing album, and it's really got me excited for the future of this band. I hope they keep going. And having seen them a couple weeks ago, they were great. Absolutely amazing. Mind-blowingly great. And this band has aged better for me than Maiden has. I think Halloween has got a longer string of records that are more consistent and better than later day Maiden records. They just are. They're more concise. Even though this album is long, it doesn't feel long. It's so well written and so good, and so many songs in a row are amazing. It doesn't. Senjutsu, no. The one before Senjutsu, oh my God.
You didn't like Book of Souls?
I liked it, but again, I listened to it for a week and I haven't touched it since. I just don't care. Final Frontier, didn't like that album. I didn't, other than 2 songs.
No, that's not a great album, no.
Halloween has aged great, and seeing them live, they still sound, all the singers sounded perfectly in pitch. The guitar playing was amazing and spot on. Wow. I mean, I love this band. I love it. My kid loves it, and that makes me love it even more. And Rabbit Don't Come Easy, stupid name. It's a great record, Alan. You need to you need to revisit. I know.
Like every Halloween album, there's always a few good songs, but that it's a little more sparse for me. But that's just my opinion.
That's a good point. Halloween is still writing songs that rip. Maiden isn't. Senjutsu, there's nothing that rips. It's like 80 minutes of a metalized yawn for me.
Bruce's vocals are very obviously like getting tired. You can tell. And I don't feel like that on the new Halloween album at all. Like they're still powerful. They're still there. Like they can still go for much longer. But it just has seemed like Bruce is starting to kind of lose that flair that he once had.
Well, Nico just turned 71 too. I mean, he's got a lot of work to do, and he's 71 years old.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. Like in their touring band, they toured like crazy when they release things. And it's not just like 7 shows, it's like 50. Like they do like every country, I feel like. So that's got to be a lot of wear and tear on them.
Oops, sorry. All right.
Yeah,
Melanie,
there's a comment I was trying to pull up here. John just asked if the chat could have a chance to guess people's number 1 before we reveal them. Yeah, absolutely. That sounds fun. So before Melanie reveals her number 1, chat, who's she going to pick? Who is Melanie's favorite band of all time? Some folks have been someone else I think said, and maybe it was John, said he was willing to bet some money he could pick. He was going to call the shot on Melanie's. So
I would have picked Cannibal Corpse, but she already shown that. So, there it is. I think Devin nailed it. Devin put it right in its crosshairs, and he pulled the trigger on it.
We've got a guess for Tool, for Maiden, for Slipknot. Wilson, she already talked Slayer a little earlier. She had Slayer is on her list.
Stevie
Alex
Wonder.
is going with Black Dahlia. Aaron is
Aaron wants Stevie Wonder.
Yeah. Sorry, Aaron, I just can't see that one being her top pick. Seagull once again.
That'd be great. That'd be awesome.
Wade's also going with Tool. So,
how much longer are we gonna?
I'm gonna say Dahlia. I'm gonna say Black Dahlia.
That would be my pick of what folks have guessed. I would have to guess Dahlia as well.
It's his in Midnight Oil.
No, that's yours, Simon. Simon used to roadie for them back in the day. He knows everybody in Australia.
I do. Everybody who knows me knows, like, I absolutely love Black Dahlia Murder, but I do not love them more than this band.
I can't believe they even make your top 10. That's a shock.
It's hard to put them over all the bands that I talked about. I do love them. It's a newer band that I, fell in love with later in my life because they haven't been around for nearly as long as a lot of these bands that I talked about. But this has always been the number one band for me. Still to this day, still have a fond obsession, and that's Tool. A lot of people were right. It is Tool.
Folks called Tool. Okay.
So I know that it's a pretentious band. I've heard it all. I've heard every single criticism of this band. Trust me. I know Maynard is pretentious and he's annoying. I know Adam Jones is pretentious with his $7,000 Gibson guitars that he has out there. But this band is the reason why I listen to metal music. Like, they are the band that got me into it. Enema was the first ever record that I heard by them solely because my brother was a huge fan of them. I will never forget the first time I ever heard Stinkfist and 46 and 2 and the title track Enema, and just that whole album literally changed my life. Like, I recorded, my brother had the CD. I recorded a tape from his CD just so I could have it. And I literally fell asleep to it every single night for probably months the first time I ever heard it. And this is back in the day before the internet. So you don't know a whole lot about the band members. You don't know all these things. And, their rise to stardom was very much there, especially with this record. And then Lateralis came out, and that I credit Lateralis as one of, that's my favorite album of all time, of every music genre. I still listen to it all the time. And this band just has really, it's just one of those bands where, like, if I made back in the day when they did MTV specials where people were obsessed with bands, I would have been on that show because my wall was completely covered in Tool posters and pictures from all the metal magazines of Maynard and his drag and Naked and whatever he was on stage with, hanging on my wall. I learned guitar, and the first song I ever learned on guitar was 46 and 2. Adam Jones was always one of my, the reason why I wanted to learn to play guitar. It just always was one of those bands. I was obsessed with it. I've seen them live the most out of any band ever. I probably own, the only record I don't own on vinyl is Enema because the first press is $1,000 and they've reissued it one other time. They're incredibly hard to find, but that's my grail. So if anybody would like to sell me one, please let me know. But yeah, they got really prog later on, and I don't mind the prog. I love Fear Inoculum. People really dog on that album because Maynard doesn't sing a whole lot. It's a very proggy, album. The songs are long. It's never bothered me. I've always loved prog rock and prog metal growing up. I was a huge Yes fan. All those things, that stuff has never bothered me. One of the greatest live shows I've ever seen. I've seen an Enema show, Lateralis show. I've seen 10,000 Days. Every single show that they do is incredible. They just go above and beyond for their live stage presence. And I know that people find them pretentious. They think their fans are annoying. I try my best not to be an annoying fan. And yes, I do spend a lot of money when I go see them in concert. It's annoying that their tickets are over $100. I wish it wasn't that way. They're a stadium band. That's just how it's always going to be. But yeah, I've always loved them. I'm always going to love what they do, unless for some reason they do a rap rock album. That might be my, that might be my cutoff right there. But yeah, this is a band that I've worshipped for a very long time. Every single lyric I've dissected and trying to figure out what it means, and all of the mathematics around Lateralis that they did. And Alex Gray is their predominant artist right now for their last several records. He's one of my favorite artists. I've learned about their metal, the artists that they've used, everything. I know their live rigs. I know the types of vocal boxes that Maynard uses on stage. It's an obsession. It has become an obsession. And at one point, in time. I think I only wore a Tool t-shirt every single day. I don't own a lot of them anymore because they were just such in bad shape. But yeah, I don't know. I love them. I wish they just announced a new tour this week. They're not coming to Florida, unfortunately, and I'm sad. They were just here for Rockville, but I wasn't going to go to a 3-day festival because I didn't care for a lot of those bands. So yeah, I'm sad that they're not coming back to Florida, but I might actually make it up to the Milwaukee show just to go see them. That's the type of band they are. I will travel across the country just to see them. And also, everybody asks me, like, what's my all-time favorite Tool song? And I've always said it's been Parable, Parabola, the two together because they go together. But my favorite, like, guest vocal, Maynard has done a lot of guest vocals, especially on the Deftones record, is Know Your Enemy with Rage Against the Machine. One of the greatest songs ever made in time. So the two bands are really go hand in hand for me for Rage and Tool as being my number one. I could talk about this for hours. I'm going to stop. I could do a whole entire deep dive of every single one of their albums. And Opiate is one of the greatest EPs ever made. So, yeah, I love this band. I know a lot of people really shit on them, but I just don't. I ignore it. I don't care.
All right.
Oh, cool pick. Interesting. Not a band I ever really knew much about.
Eric, people are trying to guess what our number one is before we say it. So everybody, what do you think High Defamation's number one pick is? Number one band. As he stated, it changes from week to week for sure. But let me see, Eric.
Dinner.
Chat have any picks or any guesses?
Who's gonna guess?
Eric is a tough nut to crack because he likes so many different.
Klaus Nomi.
Mm-hmm.
Yes,
Glenn's
definitely
guessing
Klaus
DRI.
Glamera Pantera.
Nomi.
That's from Simon.
Minor Threat. The Shags.
Huh.
Some punk band. Black
Okay.
Flag.
Black Flag. That's not a bad choice.
Perfect Circle, and that's not.
Oh, that was for somebody else. Sorry, that wasn't for you.
Chromax, Celtic Frost, Obituary. No. All right, Eric. Discharge. Here we go.
The Law. No, definitely not the Law. Fuck that record.
Not Tool.
Jason's playing the field.
Halloween. Simon said Halloween. Man, my work here is done if Eric pulls up a Halloween record.
So,
Ramones.
I no. I could have picked a few different things, but I tried to keep it metal for the most part, just to see if I could. Or and I did. So I don't know. I pulled this Tank.
Oh, okay.
This means war.
Well, there it is. Alan
This record
represents.
is amazing. It's amazing. It's an amazing record. But here's the thing. Everything by Tank up to and including this record is actually pretty fucking stellar, in my opinion. Also, R.I.P. Algie Ward. Just passed away.
Yeah, Seagull mentioned
Also,
that
the
in the chat a
reason
little
that
earlier. I hadn't heard that.
Yeah, the reason I'm familiar with Tank is because Algie Ward. Growing up a fan of The Damned and specifically Machine Gun Etiquette, which Algie Ward was on after he was also in The Saints out of Australia. All three projects, killer. And his stints in all three projects. This is basically his brainchild for the most part. I mean, like, I know there were issues with rights, and there were technically like two Tanks for a while in the early 2000s. Okay, cool. I don't know what that means, but just a stellar record. Everything I like about Venom, but minus the camp, which is one of the things that I really dig about Tank. Yeah. I mean,
Right on. I never would have guessed Tank, but that's a very cool pick.
Awesome heavy metal. It's like the epitome of what I love about the new wave of British heavy metal that I love is what is Tank. Like if it sounds like Tank, I'm probably gonna dig it. So like Warfare would be another one. Fucking Avenger, all that dirtbag shit basically.
Yeah. Eric, you know Robespierre, small new
that reissue of that record is on my short list. So I need to grab the one with the dude on the horse. I think.
Yep. If you like the band, you would definitely dig that one.
Yeah. I'm familiar.
Figured you would be.
All right. Tank it is. Number 1 for Eric. Right on. Alan. Oh, okay, everybody. I'm gonna say Jag Panzer.
Jag Panzer.
What's Alan's number 1?
I'll be interested to see if anybody guesses it. I don't know if anybody will.
Sabotage.
Alex is guessing Maiden.
Maiden.
I had Sabotage right before you came on, Eric.
Chameleon.
Yeah, Laps Leave the Hall.
Lanny Codex.
Darren, that's good, but too new a band to make a list like this.
Is it
if
White
they put out
Snake?
another 3 or
It's
4
a White
albums
Snake.
that's good, then they might be.
It's
Rage.
the Scorpions, isn't it?
Rage, there are parts of the Rage catalog I do not know.
There's so many Rage albums. They're all pretty solid, but
Witchfinder General made 2 great albums, but that's not enough to get this far up the list for me.
Jaguar.
Some new British heavy metal band that put out a 7-inch. Yeah, I was really careful not to do that kind of thing, Devin. No, we're talking bands with a big catalog here. Bolt Thrower. No, that's a fair guess.
Alan said Witchfinder. He said no on that. Diamond Head.
Fate's Warning.
Unholy Grave.
Diamond Head doesn't have enough of a catalog.
Unholy Grave.
Dream Theater. Nate, Leave the Hall.
Oh, Saxon. After that dive, I couldn't. I'm having a hard time coming back to Saxon.
Virgin Steel, good guess. Yeah, okay. Overkill. I lost track of over the years. As much as I love some of their stuff, I just lost track of them.
The new album's not bad.
Oh, I'll say that nobody's named them yet. So,
well, I guess get on with it then. I would have said Pentagram, but you showed them as an honorable mention, so I was way out of step there.
That's all right. Well, okay. Let's see how much I can drag this out. This is a band that has 16 albums in their discography, 16 studio albums. And the reason I've got them as number 1, out of those 16 albums, there's only one that I don't like. This band has made 15 albums that I think are all at least good or better. Good all the way up to like top 5 of all time good albums. It's an American band. They've been around since the 1970s. Blue Oyster Cult? Nope, not Cult. A lot of folks have been calling for Blue Oyster Cult tonight. I get that. They're a big band for a lot of folks. Testament? Nope. That Seal is the real deal. Riot. And it's kind of an easy one to forget about and overlook because they've always been a little under the radar for a lot of folks. They've gone through a lot of, changes over the years. You've got, the early Guy Speranza era. This album, I love this album to death. I cannot even tell you how many times I've played this album. And it's their debut. They nailed it right off the bat. And, you only get a few albums with him. You get, Narita is decent. I don't like it as much as, this one. But then you have, Fire Down Under with classics, Swords and Tequila. Then you get into the bluesy Rhett Forrester stuff. Made in America is a great album. I really like that one with Rhett on vocals. They took a few years off and kind of reinvented themselves as American power metal with Thundersteel, which is arguably a top 5 album of all time for me. It would be up there in the conversation. I love the Privilege of Power that came after it, even though it's a little wacky at times. Yeah, then you get into the Mike DeMeo era where, they reinvent themselves. I don't think there's a Mike DeMeo album that I dislike. I think every one of those is good to excellent. And then, at the end of the, era with Mark, they, bring some vocalists back and do some things. And now you have, the Riot, V or Riot 5 era going on. And those albums are all really good too. The only one in their catalog out of the 16 that I would give a thumbs down to is Restless Breed. I just can't get into a lot of the songs on that album. There's a few on it I do like, but there's just something about that album that always is a little off-putting to me. Which again, it's weird because I like Rhett Forrester's voice and I love Made in America or Born in America. I always mess up the name. But yeah, 15 out of 16 albums get a thumbs up. And that's incredible. There's no other band that really came close to that. When I was looking through discographies, every other band, there was always like, 3 or 4 albums that are kind of like, well, this one's not so great. Even with like, Running Wild is number 2. There's 3 or 4 albums that are kind of like, well, they hit a rough patch for a stretch of years here. Right? 15 out of 16 albums are quality stuff. And that is why Tior the Mighty brings home the first place trophy, as everyone intended for him to.
How much weed do you have to smoke for that dude
Right.
to be a solid mascot?
Nailed
it. Oh, this artist has our vision. Seal-headed seal-headed man boy there, whatever, man child. Yeah.
I can't remember. Oh, sorry. I was gonna say, I can't remember. Did you show up Born in America during the Mark Riddick episode?
I did. Oh, one of us did.
What a god awful album cover, but it just really sums up our country right now. Like
it's a weird album cover, and that album, even in the Riot discography, that album is kind of buried. But
I had a version of that record where it was like the cover was a chick's chest with like a t-shirt but under boob showing.
I've seen that. I don't have that.
I had that on cassette, and I hated that record, honestly. But
that's right. I don't remember what pressing. I don't know if that's a European pressing or something from Asia. But I've seen the one you're talking about.
I like Fire Down Under.
Yep. I am done with my list. Riot is it boils down to the fact that they, with one exception, they have yet to make a bad album. And there's technically they're still going and they're still doing good.
They had 16 opportunities to get a different mascot. Yeah. Apparently they loved it. I don't know.
It's kind of funny. They actually started well before the era of the mascot in a way. And they had that stuff, already going long before Eddie and others came along, and that's the one they stuck with. Maybe that's why they never got bigger.
Yeah.
All right, now, folks, it's time to. I'm pretty sure I know what Marty's number 1 is going to be, so I'm not going to guess out loud.
Yeah.
I'll chat. Have at it.
Okay, what do we got, folks?
What is Marty's most favorite heavy band of all time going to be?
I'm going to guess it's pumpkin related.
No, I just did that. That was my number 2.
Oh, sure.
Darren says a Halloween cover band because you already picked Halloween. Devin says Voivod or Kiss. Those are both good guesses.
Good guesses.
Andy's going with Kiss. Glenn says Entombed.
How great would it be if he was like the Glorious Dead?
Marty had Skinny Puppy in his honor.
Drowning the Light.
No, that's a stupid collector scum problem I have. Is Drowning the Light.
Oh God, it's never ending. There's like 7
and I
releases
can't
come out
stop
a
it.
week.
And I'm done buying these stupid records, and then a whole bunch come out. I'm like, oh, it's cheap, and I buy it. And I'm like, why did I buy this? I'm so stupid. It sounds like all the rest of them.
We got guesses for Manowar, Hades, Enslaved, ABBA.
ABBA.
So, yep. Some more guesses for Kiss. One for Portal.
Portal.
Well, that's a swing and a miss. All right. It's already been named. So my not so secret musical shame is Kiss. First band I ever heard that stuck with me other than maybe ABBA. And this was 77, 78 that I was turned on to this band. And even though I'm embarrassed to admit, I've struggled with myself over the years deciding that Kiss is my favorite band because I don't much care for the people that are in the band. I don't like a lot of the things they do. And I've got a lot of problems with some of the records they put out, but there's no denying the early stuff. These live records in particular, I mean, these are the actual records my grandmother bought me. They still play. I still love them. This is like comfort food for me. And this is my favorite studio Kiss album, is Music from the Elder. I don't know why that one ended up being one of my favorites, but it did. I like the world building quality of it. This band got me into music. And for that, what do you have, Mel? I didn't see it.
I'm a huge Kiss fan too.
Oh, right on.
They probably would be in my top 5, but I didn't consider them to be like heavy. They're more rock.
They are more rock,
But-
and I agree. But if it wasn't for this band, I wouldn't have gone into any of the heavy stuff. Maybe, I don't
I
know.
think they're heavy adjacent enough that
Yeah.
that-
I've always loved. I have every single
no
one.
shame
I have
there.
every single one of the albums except for the new Record Store Day. I'm blanking right now that they just released this year. Never mind. Anyway, go ahead. Sorry.
I mean, you look at this here. You see Norwegian black metal after they borrowed Mom's Bedazzler. I mean, they influenced music. They influenced the concert experience. They
Yep.
say what you want.
Sparkle in the northern sky.
The sparkle in the northern sky. Exactly. Ace Frehley is uninteresting of a guitar player he is. This early stuff, his guitar solos stuck in my head. They were a hook. They were like the hook to the song. And memorable guitar solos were something that stood out for me for a very long time. And it was all because of Ace Frehley. So yeah, Kiss is my number one. I hate to admit it because, again, Kiss has got a lot of problems. I've got all but one of their records. All but 2 of their records. And I will get it eventually just to say I have them all. But they had to go on this list just because if it wasn't for them, I don't know what I'd be spending my money on other than a bunch of music. I mean, I would probably be a millionaire if I didn't buy music. I would probably have money in the bank. I don't know. I don't want to think about that. Let's not talk about that.
That
So,
does
yeah.
bring up one thing though, Marty. Voivod, you didn't mention Voivod tonight.
I didn't mention Voivod. That is,
I'm
interesting.
surprised.
I'm a little surprised too. I love them. They would be in the top 20 for sure.
Okay, so
Morbid.
yeah,
I expected Morbid Angel too.
Before Alan made me cull a bunch of stuff.
I mean, I did have Black Dahlia. I mean, for the people that didn't think
These
I
two.
did. Oh, Dismember, yeah, for sure.
Yeah. And
mean,
also
Obituary.
this. I'm wearing the shirt, but this band, I own all their records except for the latest one. I haven't gotten it yet. But this band, especially this album, I love Early Overkill. I love them. But my high school years were filled with jamming Overkill records incessantly, along with Merciful Fate.
See, Dizzy, yes. Marty had Bathory earlier.
Yep.
I
Battery
don't
was
remember
covered.
which number.
Yep. So yeah, that's it. We
All
did
right.
it.
We have made it. So there you go, folks. At least for today, those are our 10 favorite heavy-ish bands. So Melanie, Eric, thank you very much for joining us. It's
Heck
been
yeah.
a fun topic, but yeah, it was, as we talked about earlier, a little
Sorry
bit
I was,
harder to try to, leave some things out.
Sorry I was late.
Oh, that's quite okay. Quite okay.
And then
Stuff
left for
happens.
food.
But yeah, not as easy as it sounds for folks that are out there, in the chats, wondering, or watching this, at a later time, wondering why didn't you name this band or why didn't you name that band? You can only name 10, and there's obviously more than 10 bands that each of us love to death. But when you put some
True.
restrictions on it, it's like you can only name 10. You really got to think it through, and some good stuff is going to get left off the list for sure.
Yeah.
And
I
we
think
do
it's funny
appreciate.
'cause-
Go ahead.
Oh, sorry. No, sorry.
No.
There's like that
Go ahead.
overlap. Yeah.
No.
I think it's funny because I think one of the most criticism that I get on my YouTube channel is that there's always that one person that's like, man, you love a lot of bands. And I'm like, that's a bad thing. I mean, yeah, I would prefer to love a lot of bands and only be stuck with, a few and then end up getting bored with them, like, I don't know, but I do love a lot of bands.
There are those people. I mean, there is definitely a chunk of the music listening world where they just latch on to a couple of handfuls of bands, and they don't really they know those bands really in detail, inside and out. But yeah, they don't go very wide on checking out other bands.
Yeah.
And then there's folks that, they listen to 1,000 different bands. They're not going to know every nut and bolt about the catalog of any of them, but they just check out a ton of different stuff.
Yeah, and if we had included other genres, there would be more bands on this list because, I actually have, aside from Tool, another all-time favorite band that I'm completely obsessed with, and it's Genesis. Like, that's the total exact opposite of, like, Peter Gabriel, Phil Collins, I don't care. I love every single one of their albums. So, yeah.
Good deal.
I think, Steve, that I think this last record store day there was an Eric Carr album also.
Eric Carr, yeah, that's what it was. It was the soul album. Yeah, how they did all the.
Well, hell, we had a great turnout tonight. There was over 100 people at one or two occasions. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us and hanging out with us through all these weeks. 110 of them, to be exact.
That's a lot.
Eric, Melanie, it was awesome to have you as always, to have you guys come on. We really appreciate it. Everybody go check out High Defamation TV. Eric has been, since he moved into his new digs, he's been on fire. 3 videos the last 2 weeks. Oh my God, I almost fainted. Melanie's getting ready to move.
Are they any good? That's the real question.
Oh, they're totally good.
Probably not.
New Godflesh I need to check out. There's going to be a deep dive of Godflesh on this channel at some point. I think Matt from The Dark Path might be doing it with me. So maybe, Eric, are you into Godflesh? Do you want to jump in on that action too? Or
I like Godflesh, but I lost track along the way. I want to say I kind of lost track after Songs of Love and Hate. That's about where, like, I have a few things that were released between then and now. I picked up the record they put out in like the 2015 or 2016 with the red cover.
Yeah, World Cleansed by Fire, I think is what it's called, or something. That's the only one. I don't have that or the new one. Those are the two I need to get before I can do the stream. But
pretty good one. The new one's out in September and July, I think. But I think you can get it direct from Avalanche Records now. That's like Broderick's label. So like, I think he's sending them out from where he's at, where that is, UK. I've heard good things about that new one, so I'm definitely going to be checking it out.
Melanie also will be moving here shortly, so there might be a dip in content from her, but probably not for too long.
No, I mean, I've already started packing stuff, but I have a lot of things coming in the mail, so those will be my next videos, are collection updates. But as far as finally moving, getting into a bigger place, I won't be sitting next to a window. People complain about my window all the time in my videos because there's that glare. I'm like, I don't have anywhere to put my desk. Like, it just doesn't make any sense. So I have a bigger music room, so it'll be nice.
Awesome. And of course, Alan does Let's Talk Metal. He posts every Tuesday.
Yep, pretty much. I may be skipping a few Tuesdays in the coming weeks. I've got a video loaded for this coming Tuesday that should be fun. But I mentioned at the start of that the summer schedule is getting pretty busy with a lot of stuff. I may be on the road a little bit more than I had anticipated. And I don't have a lot of videos pre-made like I have in the past right now because things have been kind of crazy. So may have to, skip a Tuesday here or there. But if there's not a video, I'm sure there's tons of great channels out there you can go watch on any given day of the week. And, I haven't disappeared. I haven't run off and joined the circus. I've just got a lot of stuff to do these days and may not have time to keep up with the once a week schedule here and there.
Is joining the circus in the plans, Alan?
It's not, because you got to have plans.
I would go to the circus that Alan was in. I don't think I'd hit up many circuses, but one.
No.
No. If I'm joining a circus, it's going to be legit.
Yeah. I mean, I would hope so.
Alan makes a fine bearded lady. Just saying.
Yeah, there's the Seal Boy and there's the Human Cannonball, and I think, why not both?
It's a work for Riot. They combined two things that shouldn't have been combined, so why not?
And look how beautifully it turned out.
Totally. But next week's show notes, Monday, we've got a review Frozen Soul with Melanie. Wednesday, we are covering in the album club Fascinator by Masters Hammer. Check it out. We'll be rambling on about this for about an hour. And Friday is that, I can't remember. Is that Pat?
Yes, next Friday night, Pat from Ground Zero Ceiling will be joining us. The boys are back in town to talk some Thin Lizzy.
Yep, we'll be talking about Thin Lizzy. I got homework I need to do, so that'll be happening.
Are you deep diving?
We're going to deep dive it. We're deep diving it, I guess.
We're going to go through the discography and see what we think of.
So 6 hours too.
How big is it? How big is it?
It's big, man.
Is it?
Is it bigger than Saxon?
It's not bigger than Saxon. It's not 25.
This is about 11 or 12 albums, studio albums.
I've got 4, I think 5. I have 5 now. Zoller sent me one, so I have 5.
Oh.
We could do it. Woo! It'll be great. It'll be fun. Good to have Pat back on.
Yes, it'd be good to have Pat back on. His schedule's been very busy on Fridays lately, but he's got a Friday available, and he was really excited to hop on for this topic. So that is what we shall do. Looking forward to it.
Absolutely. Well, cool, folks. It was great. Had a good time tonight. Thank you so much for joining us, and be sure to check out everybody's channel in the links in the description below. Subscribe to them and comment on their stuff. It'd be great. It'd help them out for a bunch. And next week, I'm hoping there's going to be some shirts to show you folks to jump on here. I'm hoping. I got the SEPs printed out, so Riddick design impending. Anyway, cheers, everybody. We will see you next week. Have a great weekend.